This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Give us a call, 208-991-4783. Become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. Currently at 950 friends. Would love to get to 1,000 by October 26th, which is the second anniversary of our first regular broadcast. And also, I encourage you to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. Well, this program is brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support. Here now is today's episode of Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator, A Time to Kill.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
To ensure a longer life, folks, a gun in hand is worth two in the bush.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. There's a popular notion people have about confidential operatives. Stop any guy on the street and ask him. The notion? Steam-heated love, or, as the French say, amour. My classification of workers always got a blonde on one arm, another blonde in his lap, and a third blonde in his eye, so people think. The truth, as a matter of fact, is people are so right. Textbook biology aside, the true reason for our howling success with the ladies is our fatherly appeal. It's women looking for the male protection they missed since the carefree days of the cradle. It's the unladylike search for the strong, dominating male who knows all the answers. It's also the classic feminine urge to pin horns on the masculine cranium. I won my horns by parking overtime outside Grand Central Station. I'd gone in to see if the mayor was making good on his promise to keep the trains running on time. I came out to find a summons tied to my windshield wiper. A green ticket. The $15 variety. Ouch. In my car, I found something more had been added to liven up my humdrum existence. A Cupid doll. Painted a rainbow pink with saucer eyes, and blowing so many scents over me, I got an immediate perfume jag. Isn't there some mistake?
No.
You, didn't mistake this for public hack?
No.
Then, I'm in the wrong car?
Are you?
I'll check. Well, keys fit the ignition. The car belongs to me.
Oh, how wonderful.
But you don't.
How sad.
Funny.
Funny?
I always wonder just how the future Mrs. Barrie Craig would happen along. Run into me turning a corner? Or come to me with a letter of introduction from my Uncle Hess in Allentown?
You're disappointed it's like this.
I'm frightened.
Frightened?
My blood pressure. 10 more points, and I'm flying with the angels.
Oh, then you like me.
We'll get married and have 6 kids.
7.
7's a lot of laundry.
We'll live in the country.
I'm allergic to marigolds.
A picture wall looking out on green fields.
Comes August, I sneeze and my eyes get red.
We'll name the children Tommy.
Not all 6 of them.
7.
Oh, I did want one daughter. What will I call you when I'm hunting high and low for my cufflinks?
Cerise. And when I want help with the supper dishes?
Barrie. And when we toast marshmallows and reminisce about how we first came to meet, what should I remember?
How I hid in your car to escape the dragon.
The dragon?
A repulsive little man who follows me.
Where did he follow you from last?
Connecticut. He was on the train.
From Connecticut to my car?
Yes.
I see. Where is Mr. Repulsive right now?
Behind us.
Behind us.
In the gray coupe. He's waiting to follow us when you pull away.
I'll fix that.
Oh, no.
I'm Samson. I break heads like matchsticks.
Please, no. No violence. Nothing to spoil the fun we're having. Oh, I feel so good. Oh, I haven't felt good for such a long time.
So what do I do?
Just take me away.
With a chaperone on our tail?
You're capable and clever.
Huh. I shake guys like salt out of a shaker.
I knew you were equal to the dragon.
For every block he hangs on over 10, you can paint a zebra stripe on me. In no time, I had more zebra stripes than skin. The repulsive dragon hung on for 10 blocks, then 30 more, then through the Holland Tunnel, way into Jersey. I hung up a new highway speed record, but the gray coupe stayed in the money. Your dragon drives like he was born to the wheel.
But you're so much better.
All of a sudden, baby, I'm not so sure. I got off the highway, snaked up and down deserted side roads. I followed the moon across rocks and stumps of forest like my car was a Jeep, but the gray coupe hung on. Hung on close enough to point up the risks in my undertaking. The dragon's spitting fire at us, baby.
He's shooting at your tires.
Oh, you're wrong about the tires.
Oh, Barrie, you've been hit.
How are you going to like me with a dimpled elbow? In front of him like this, we're a nice, lush target.
Oh, you're not stopping.
I've run out of road. Dead end ahead.
Oh, but we can't. Barrie, look. He's crashed.
Yeah, he has. That will teach him to shoot and drive at the same time.
He ran into a tree.
Remind me to kiss the tree. Let's go offer our condolences. Wait. I almost forgot. Got a dime handy?
A dime? Oh, yes. Here. But why?
I'm throwing it to Finnegan. For luck. It was Finnegan who made the gray coupe crash in the nick of time.
Oh.
You understand?
Yes. Finnegan's your good angel. Oh, I almost forgot, too. Let me see. A quarter. I'm throwing it to Mrs. Rumpelheimer, my good angel.
You're growing on me, baby. No question about it. You're really growing on me. The gray coupe was telescoped like an accordion. Getting the unconscious dragon out of the wreck was like breaking into a sardine can with your fingernails. An owl kept applauding the show. A Vest pocket dragon, small hands and dainty feet, and the emaciated look of a guy who went hungry Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
How badly hurt is he?
He could be worse. He could be dead. Contusions. When he comes to, he's going to hate that word.
Your elbow.
Only a nick that can wait. Buster here is really emergency. I've got to get him to a hospital.
But...
If he keeps bleeding, the dragon will change to a zombie right in front of us. Contusions weren't half the medical jargon.
The patient's in an oxygen tent, Mr. Craig.
What's the diagnosis?
Multiple injuries to the head. Conditional paralysis of the reflexes due to severe concussion.
Oh. He'll recover?
Pathologically, yes.
What does that mean?
As an aftermath of trauma, there may be psychiatric complications.
Meaning?
A memory lapse. and amnesia.
Rough. Or maybe not. Maybe it's a blessing. Maybe Buster has more he'd like to forget than remember.
His name appears to be Reuben Clark?
Yeah. That's the name on the label sewed inside his coat.
But no other identification, address, an nearest of kin?
No. As I've already said, I looked for a wallet. Oddly enough, he wasn't carrying one.
The hospital will need more information for a police report.
I've told you all I know. I was out driving with my girl and heard this crash behind me. The gray coupe, out of control, had folded against a tree. I played Good Samaritan. That's all there is. He's in your hands now, Doc, so give him the full treatment, huh? Get a perfume jag on and your brain takes to the hills. It happens to a bachelor pushing 40. That weak moment when single bliss suddenly has the feeling of solitary confinement.
Oh, you were wonderful rescuing me.
The congressional medal goes to that tree.
Do what you did for me in blind faith.
All through history, men have gone blind and boneheaded over a Cupid doll. Mark Antony, for instance. Baby, you kiss like you took a graduate course.
No man has ever risked himself for me before.
The men in your past must have been 80 and over.
I've never before had a champion.
Tie a blue ribbon around my neck and fit the dunce cap at a rakish angle.
The dunce cap?
Blind faith, you said. I could be promoting a horse laugh at myself.
Oh, no.
Then fill in a few reassuring facts.
Facts?
The delirious dragon I palmed off in a hospital, Reuben Clark, who is he?
I'm not sure.
Who do you think he is?
I think a man in the hire of my guardian.
And what's the problem with your guardian?
I don't think I want to talk about it.
It's too late for reluctance, baby. I've taken too big a bite of your life.
He's mistreated me, hurt me, kept me prisoner, confined me to my room, always under watch.
Why?
He wants to marry me. There was money, many valuable things left to both of us when my parents died.
And guardian wants all of it through marriage to you?
Yes.
But why run? Why not stand up to him, get to a lawyer, go to the police?
I can't. He's clever, my guardian, devilishly clever and determined.
You're in the land of the free. We pay judges to step on
He
worms.
threatened to have me put away if I oppose him, if I keep refusing to marry him.
What do you mean, put away?
In a sanitarium. He's bribed people, old servants, even old friends to swear that I'm mentally irresponsible.
Nice guy, your guardian.
But I have no way of fighting him fairly.
You've got me.
Oh, thank you so much, but I don't want to fight him.
Procrastination, baby.
I just want to hide and rest. Not think today and tomorrow. Just not think. I've been trapped in a nightmare, in a hideous nightmare.
Sure you have. It's up to your ears. You want a breather. Nothing to fret over. Just pass the time.
And have fun. Like the fun we were having.
6 kids.
7.
During this breather, where do you want to be?
Anywhere. Where only you can find me.
Okay. I know a country shack owned by a friend of mine over at Scotch Plains. It won't be in use until May 1st, and I know where the key is.
Oh, you're wonderful.
You'll be the guest of a certain Lieutenant Trav Rogers, only he won't know it. It's Rogers' shack. I'll stock you up with groceries and look in now and then. I'll take you over to it. Just one more fact to file away. Who and where is your guardian?
I'd rather not at present.
No, you can trust me. My word on it. I won't make a move until you agree to it.
My guardian is Jeffrey Foley. We live in Tuxedo Grove Heights, Connecticut.
Back in my office, I got my first real indication that boy-girl woo-hoo sometimes echoes back ow-wow. An uninvited caller. Male, 30 about, a flashy dresser and a peppermint-striped shirt, gray suede gloves, and a nickel-plated revolver.
You Barrie Craig?
No.
What do you mean, no? This is Craig's office?
Was. I took over this morning. I'm a distant cousin.
Then where's Craig?
Passed away.
Croaked?
Yeah, all of a sudden at 2 a.m. this morning.
What are you giving me?
The obituary.
Into your pocket and throw your wallet on the desk. I want to check.
It so happens I'm carrying Craig's wallet to turn it over to the estate.
Where's the dame?
Dame?
You're asking for something, Craig.
Your arm will get stiff pointing that gun.
I got a heat lamp home.
Oh.
You don't want to talk about the dame, huh?
I've got a block against discussing women. I was a retarded adolescent. Want to talk about the track?
The dame.
Famous battles of history, then.
The dame.
You're a hard man to please.
Get over to the window.
The window?
Open it.
You can't throw guys out of windows.
Why not?
The sanitation code. Littering the sidewalk. You'll be socked $5 in magistrate's court.
Open the window, comedian. Now, close it.
Close it? Just what did that accomplish?
You're smart. Figure it out yourself.
I just did. Who was I signaling?
The big guy. He'll be up to talk to you. Later.
Later.
After I've softened you up. So you can talk politely to the big guy. He don't like wisecracking comedians. Now lie down on the floor.
What for?
So I can get at your head. Standing up, I can't reach you.
You are kind of short for a muscle man.
Bending over the dice all the time I was a kid grew down instead of up. So lie down, Craig. Nice, huh?
You can close the safety catch on your gun. I'll lie down nice.
Now tell me a funny story. While I work.
I awoke in a fog. A cigar fog. Clouds of strong tobacco blowing in my face. I found a face behind the cigar after a while. A moon face with a contented smile. Like men smile after dealing themselves a royal flush in spade. Hey, keep that stinkweed in my face and I'll be gassed to death.
It's fine Cuban tobacco.
But I'm no Cuban.
Let's talk, Craig.
Let's talk about the beating I survived.
My deepest apologies. The dude is a continual embarrassment to me.
The dude, huh?
I've tried to teach him moderation and restraint.
Turn him over to my teaching for 10 minutes.
All right, I will.
Joke. I don't know where I fit into your game.
I'll tell you. Automobile license number BC-100, New York. Honorary plates issued to Barrie Craig.
So?
Your automobile. I saw a certain young lady get into it yesterday. It pulled away, unfortunately, before I could formulate strategy. In pursuit, I lost the car in traffic.
So?
This morning, I identified you as the owner of the car. Where's the girl, Craig?
I don't know. She thanked me for the lift and got off at Battery Place.
I don't think so.
You'll have to take my word on it.
Temporarily, perhaps. I'm fairly resourceful at proving liars to be liars.
The dude's arm-weary right now.
I'm also a vindictive man when lied to. My one great failing.
Who hasn't got one flaw in his character?
You're, a practical man, Craig.
Is that a cash bribe developing?
A modest gesture of goodwill. $1,000?
Keep your money in your pocket.
You're not tempted?
Only curious. What makes the girl worth $1,000 on the hoof?
That doesn't concern you. It had better not concern you. You're a fool, Craig. Lochinvar riding for a fall.
Who's Lochinvar?
You're championing a girl you know nothing about. Whatever she told you, Craig, you can be sure it's pure invention.
I'm only sure you're after her, and you ring counterfeit.
Craig, I warn you.
And that stooge in a peppermint shirt you use for a calling card. You don't really think you can whistle me over to your side?
All right. Hide the girl, play the hero, and the idiot. There's a keg of dynamite under you, Craig. Oh, if only you could free your eyes of stardust.
Keg of dynamite. The phrase kept repeating in my head until it gave me the willies. How much of the truth had Cupid told me? I began to wonder. Information? Will you get me the phone number of a Jeffrey Foley, Tuxedo Grove Heights, Connecticut? Later in the afternoon, I went calling on Love. Lochinvar's here, baby.
Barrie.
With a sack full of groceries. Wax beans, salmon, fresh blueberries, vintage year bagels, enough food to keep you hiding out for a month.
Here, I'll take your coat.
Take my hat first, huh? The dunce cap.
Dunce cap?
I hate myself in it. Take it off me, baby.
Barrie, what's happened?
I tried to telephone that wicked old guardian of yours.
You tried to?
Jeffrey Foley of Tuxedo Grove Heights, Connecticut. There's no Tuxedo Grove Heights anywhere on the map of Connecticut.
I lied.
Tell me something I don't know.
But only about the address.
What's the real address?
Cranberry Hills, Pennsylvania.
Why'd you lie about the address?
I wasn't sure I could trust you. Really trust you.
Baby, come here.
I've confided in people only to have them use me, extort money, hurt me.
Two guys dropped in on me today looking for you. They barely stopped short of murder.
Barrie.
I came out here by way of Planet X to shake them. You must be quite a prize to rake two homicidal retrievers like my morning callers.
$1 million, Barrie. The estate my guardian is trying to steal. It's worth $1 million.
$1 million? I knew that love, when it came, would be nothing trivial, but I never dreamed it would have a Dun & Bradstreet rating. A perfumed doll cries on your shoulder, and reality drowns in a tub of tears. Cupid knew her way to my heart, like there was a neon sign on my chest saying, "Enter here." When love let go of my throat long enough, I took a half-hearted whack at confidential investigating. I did some more sneak checking on Cupid. The repulsive dragon, Reuben Clark, I wanted his version of events.
Patient has shown extraordinary improvement, Mr. Craig.
Is he conscious, Doc?
Yes.
I want to talk to him.
I don't think...
Don't think. The first story I told you, I thinned it down a little. The fact is this.
Dispatch.
Uh-huh.
But,
Don't pump me, Doc. I'm engaged in Operation Top Secret. I can't give out facts until I've wrapped up the case.
Of course.
Which door do we go through? The dragon talked like a guy kicking himself around the block.
I first saw the girl on the train.
Cerise Foley.
I never knew her name.
Oh, no.
Look, let me tell it my own way.
All right, tell it.
Well, it was in the club car. She sat across the aisle from me, looking peculiar.
Looking peculiar.
A little loony, humming little ditties, then winking over to me, then laughing to herself.
Are we talking about the same girl?
Look, I'm talking about the chick you made me chase all over Jersey.
Keep talking.
Well, the way it was, I figured an easy pickup.
You're trying awfully hard for a bust on the snoot.
You asked me to tell you, and I'm telling you.
Okay, tell me.
Well, I'm a guy like any other guy. Good looker like this chick wants to be sociable, so I...
Stop embroidering it, Buster.
So what'd you do, marry her or something?
You took the seat beside her. Then what?
Well, we got to talking, getting acquainted. I told her how I was a hardware salesman fresh in from Binghamton.
I don't want to know your pedigree.
Well, she told me she was Princess something or other, traveling what word am I muffing?
Incognito.
Yeah, incognito. Well, her uncle was a Maharaja somewhere, and she was here on a secret mission for him. To raise cash, she said. The Maharaja was stone broke.
You're making this up.
Well, I thought she was until I got a peek into that overnight bag she kept on her lap.
What was in the bag?
Jewels. The stuff the Maharaja sent her here to sell off. Jewels, mister. Enough jewels to make you go clean off your rocker.
Like you went.
Yeah, like I went.
Cupid confirmed the fact of the jewels.
Yes, Barrie. I have jewels. Many, many jewels. Bracelets, brooches, rings. Oh, right here in my overnight bag. See?
They're real?
Well, yes, of course.
Where did you get them? I asked, where did you get them?
You're hurting me, Barrie.
No phony stories about a guardian or a Maharaja. I want the truth.
I stole them.
Who from?
Jeffrey Foley.
Of Cranberry Hills, Pennsylvania?
No. Oh, he really lives in Meadow Farms, New York. I worked for Mr. Foley as an upstairs girl.
You were Foley's maid?
Yes. He was a brute. And Mrs. Foley, too. They mistreated me, humiliated me.
So you made off with a fortune in jewels?
Yes.
Baby, put your hands out, nice and straight.
Put my hands out.
I'm handcuffing you and tying you up so you stay put in my absence.
Where are you going?
Away from that sweet, sappy, daffy kisser of yours, so I can think. Grand larceny, baby, with yours truly accessory after the fact. I thought it over, stewed over it, and wound up telling it to Lieutenant Trav Rogers.
So love finally came to Barrie Craig.
If you have to rub it in.
What brand of smokes do you want sent to the state pen?
Give me an out.
An out like?
A deal, quietly arranged. This Foley gets his jewels back, and he doesn't prosecute.
Where's the girl in the swag now?
When I tell you, don't blow a fuse.
What's that supposed to mean?
Your shack up in Scotch Plains, where you cool off July and August.
What about my shack?
The girl's been hiding out there. She's there now.
Craig, of all the crust!
I didn't think you'd mind.
You didn't think I'd mind a common thief, and a moonstruck admirer and an accomplice. Now, Craig, you're under arrest, and so is your Cupid doll. The minute I arrive in Scotch Plains.
But it didn't end like that. As it turned out, after some nice police handling, I had a couple of new wallops, a couple of new surprises in store. The first surprise was handed me by a solemn-faced fellow wearing a white coat and a white beard, a doctor. I'd been brought to a place called Hopewell Rest, a sanitarium, by Trav Rogers.
This is Dr. Kempner, a psychiatrist. Doctor, tell it to Craig.
Yes. Mr. Craig, I'm acquainted with all the details of your curious experience with Cerise Foley, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Jeffrey Foley.
Daughter? Now, wait a minute, Doctor.
Craig, hear the doctor out.
Okay.
The story of the jewels and her position as a maid were a pure fabrication, part of, shall I say, her newest hallucination.
Newest hallucination?
The young lady has been a mental patient under my care here for some time. She hallucinates many, many things. The jewels belong to her father. She merely appropriated them in this latest escapade.
Two guys who worked over me. Who were they?
I'll answer that. They were private detectives hired by the father to recover the jewels and his daughter without publicity.
They play rough for private detectives.
Their promised fee was $25,000. The fee had them a little overeager.
Cerise, she's here now, in this sanitarium?
Yes. She is confined here.
Can I see her? Surprise number 2 added some gray hairs to the few I already had. I watched the doctor walk Cupid doll toward me. Hello, baby. The doc tells me you'll do okay, and I'm rooting for you.
Who is this man, Doctor?
I watched her stare at me blankly, stare through me, then walk away.
You see, Mr. Craig?
She looked right through me, as if she didn't know me.
She does not know you. That is another symptom in her hallucinations. An element of amnesia, shall we say. She forgets the escapade and her companion in it totally.
You mean she'll never remember me? Never know me?
I mean, you must forget her. You were her good friend for a day. And now, it is another day.
You'll get over her, Craig. It'll hurt a while, but you'll get over her.
Yeah, I'll get over her. That crack you made, Trav, what was it again? Oh, yeah. Love comes to Barrie Craig. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You've been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, A Time to Kill, was written by John Robert. Next week, it's the strange story titled Motive for Murder, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, death flies the Atlantic from Lisbon to New York. A corpse breaks the bank for $40 million. And yours truly almost sprouts wings. See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Cerise was Arlene Blackburn. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
Next, Robert Montgomery presents Something Different in News Analysis on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, a bit of a poignant ending here with this very sad story and the way it turns out. Sort of unusual, but a good change in a pretty fun episode, though, as the way that it was written. This is one episode, and there were some others where the see you next week line didn't work out too well. It was something he carried over from his days on Martin Kane. And, of course, he would do that, see you next week, folks, when the show had ended on a kind of lighthearted note. It was usually how Martin Kane ended. This one has had some a little bit more serious endings where the cheerful see you next week folks just did not work as well, but they would actually change that in some of the later episodes. Well, before we do go for today, I have a couple quick comments from Podcast Alley. Great shows and love great detectives. And I also wanted to recognize a very nice donation from Mary. Thank you so much for your support of the great detectives of old time radio. And that'll actually do it for us for today. We will be back tomorrow with Rogues Gallery. This episode of the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio is brought to you by the faithful financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support. Here now is today's episode of Rogues Gallery, Lady with a Gun.
The F.W. Fitch Company presents Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery.
Laugh a while, let a song be your style. Use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair. Use Fitch shampoo.
The F.W. Fitch Company, makers of Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo and Ideal Hair Tonic, presents Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogues Gallery. Rogue speaking. There is something about being happy that I like. And I couldn't have been any happier than I was that night if somebody had been tickling me with a feather. I had a date with Betty Callahan, and the way I feel about Betty hasn't been covered by a word yet. But it's a very dandy way to feel, and I was reveling in it as we sat there in the Club Cuba, drinking our after-dinner coffee and grinning at each other. I was quite annoyed when a gentleman with outraged dignity lurched over, drew up a chair, and made himself unwelcome at our table.
Told that you are Richard Rogue, the investigator.
Oh, that's right. Why don't you go back to your own table?
I just want to tell you, Rogue, that I consider your way of making a living despicable.
Well, thank you very much.
Now, Richard, don't start a scene.
Look, mister, why don't you go away? You wouldn't like to have me call the captain and have you dragged away, would you?
Oh, no. I have a few things to say before I leave, Rogue. I understand that my wife has retained your services to spy on me and sneak around after me.
Sit down, Richard. He's been drinking.
Yeah, okay, honey. Look, mister, will you please go away? We don't like you. Go away, scat. Go away.
Rogue, look. You know me, and I know what you're doing here. I just want to tell you, Rogue, that my wife means a great deal to me.
I don't even know your wife. I don't care anything about your private life as long as you lead it someplace away from this table.
Going to lie about it, huh? Haven't even got nerve enough to admit that you're sneaking around watching me.
Okay. Manuel. Oh, Manuel.
Yes, Mr. Rogue.
Will you take this creep away before I see whether those vitamin pills I've been taking really work? Take him away, will you?
Of course.
Yelling for help, huh, Rogue? Yellow, huh? Well, I'll show you.
Here, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb.
Let go of me. I'll kill him, the sneaking rat.
Come on, Betty. Let's get out of here before I lose my temper and nail that guy. I'd never seen him before. He looked like a nice little man, but he didn't look like he could poke his way out of a mosquito net. As we got a cab, I looked at Betty. She was blushing like a June groom, and her little lower lip was pushed out in that cute way, which indicated that she was going to tell me just what she thought of me and my profession as soon as she could control herself. Well, she did. It was early, but Betty wanted to go home, so I took her there. Then I went to my apartment. In the hall, I met a woman waiting for me, a beautifully turned-out woman, well-kept 35, with a baby face, and a full mouth drooped at the corners.
Mr. Rogue?
Yes? Yes, you waiting for me?
Yes.
Well, how nice. In just a moment. Won't you come in?
Thank you.
Have a chair. Have we met before?
No, I don't believe we have, Mr. Rogue. I've always admired you, though. I've always admired your work.
Well, thank you. And now, just what is it you wanted to see me about?
About my husband.
Oh.
He's...
he's found a new interest.
Yes.
Well, suppose you tell me. What's your name, by the way?
I'm Mrs. Webb. Mrs. Matt Webb.
Webb? Oh, Webb. Oh, well, I'm beginning to see the light. Tell me, has your husband a bad disposition and delusions of grandeur?
My husband... Well, he...
I just met him. He said that you'd retained me for some reason which he didn't explain. Why did you tell him that?
I want to retain you, Mr. Rogue. Look at this.
Huh? Oh, come on over here under the light. Bill for a fur coat, $5,000.
I want to know who my husband bought that coat for, Mr. Rogue. I'll pay you well for finding out.
Oh, I'm really sorry, Mrs. Webb, but I don't get mixed up in domestic difficulties. There are plenty of detectives, though, who will take your case.
You won't take it?
No, I really won't. I'm much too busy.
But...
Good night, Mrs. Webb.
Mr. Rogue,
I'm sorry, Mrs. Webb. I'm tired. I don't take domestic cases. Thanks for dropping in, but now good night. I have to get some sleep.
Good night, Mr. Rogue.
Now, what's the idea of calling me?
It's I, Richard. Betty. And it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, well, hello, Angel. I wasn't quite awake, you know.
Never mind. I have news for you.
Yeah?
Your friend, Matt Webb. Remember him at the club last night?
Well, sure. What about him?
Well, he was found dead in his car this morning, parked in the Hollywood Hills. Shot.
No kidding, huh?
I just left Lieutenant Urban. He's in charge of the case for homicide. He knows about your argument with Matt Webb last night.
Well, he doesn't think I did it, does he?
Well, no, but...
Oh, there's somebody at the door. How about lunch?
Oh, all right. Noon at the Derby?
Suits me. So long, honey. Keep your shirt on. I'm coming. Oh, hello, Urban. Come in.
Thanks, Rogie.
I don't know anything about it. Don't even know the guy.
You're talking about Matt Webb, I suppose.
Sure, who else? Don't tell me you just dropped in here for a cup of coffee.
How did you know Webb was dead?
Did I say he was dead? Pull up a chair. Cigarette?
No. What do you know about Webb, Rogue?
Nothing. I met him at the Club Cuba last night. He wanted to beat my brains out because I was an investigator. Seems he had a strange idea that his wife had retained me to follow him.
Okay, Rogue, talk your brains out, but you can't talk away the fact that Webb is dead and you had a beef with him.
Sure, but I don't know anything about this case, Urban. And it's early in the morning, and well,
you have a genius for getting all mixed up in things you don't know anything about, haven't you, Rogie? Now, don't get sore.
Okay, I'm not sore. Just because I meet a guy who doesn't like investigators and his wife tries to hire me to find out who he bought a fur coat for and he turns up dead.
That wife angle is interesting, Rogie. Get dressed.
Why?
Mrs. Webb didn't mention any fur coat when I went out to see her this morning.
She didn't.
Maybe she's got some more little secrets. Come on, Rogie. We're going to call on her.
We'll continue our story in just a moment. First, when you want to drive a nail, you can use the heel of your shoe or some other object, but you get better results with a hammer. So, when you want to remove dandruff, you get the best results by using a product made especially for that purpose. Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo. Fitch is the only shampoo made whose guarantee to remove dandruff is backed by one of the world's largest insurance firms. It removes dandruff effectively and quickly, because its special solvent action dissolves the dandruff, both the loose dandruff and the dandruff clinging to the scalp. To get the full benefit of this solvent action, you should always apply Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo to the hair and scalp before adding water. Then apply water only after the shampoo has been massaged thoroughly into the hair and scalp. When you do add water, a fluffy lather forms to cleanse the hair of the dissolved dandruff. Try this method of attaining shining, clean, dandruff-free hair. Use Fitch, F-I-T-C-H, Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo regularly. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
It isn't very often that I get tangled up in a case with no more money in it than a busted piggy bank. I operate on the theory that a boy's best friend is $1. I didn't know the recently dead Matt Webb from Gunga, but there I was in Urban's homicide sedan on my way out to play quiz with Mrs. Webb. During the ride, Urban gave me a quick rundown on the events surrounding Matt Webb's murder.
Webb was a very wealthy man, you know, Rogie. Big manufacturer, farm machinery.
Well, he couldn't have been very smart, or else he wouldn't have been parked up in the Hollywood Hills. That's volunteering for a stick-up.
Yeah. What's the widow look like?
His daughter? No, I guess she's not quite that young, but, what the beauty parlor and the foundation can do to keep her young has been done. Very pretty woman. She looks about 30, probably 35.
By the time we get back down to headquarters, we'll know more about her and everything else in the case. Oh, I'd like to get it over with. I want to go on my vacation. I'm sick of murders.
Hey, so this is the way the other half lives, huh? Must have taken a lot of farm machinery to plow up enough dough for this monstrosity.
Well, Webb had $1 million or $2.
Ain't hay.
Now, I'll do the questioning, Rogue. I'm in charge of the case, you know.
Oh, sure. I'm just a silent partner. Ring the bell.
Thank you, I will.
Yes?
Police. I want to see Mrs. Webb.
Oh, come in.
Thank you.
Well, go ahead, Urban. Go ahead.
She's in here. My name is Fred Gale. I was sales manager for Matt. Mr. Webb.
Lieutenant Urban, homicide. This is Richard Rogue.
Oh, I'm glad to know you, Gale. Would you mind telling me why...
Shut up, Rogue.
Huh? Well,
Shut up!
Oh, all right.
Right in here, please. Mrs. Webb, these gentlemen from homicide want to talk with you.
Must you talk to me right now? I have nothing more to say.
Mrs. Webb, Richard Rogue here tells me that you called on him last night, attempted to hire him to check on the disposition which your husband made of a fur coat.
Yes, I did. I didn't tell you about it this morning because I didn't consider it important.
Well, Miss Webb...
Rogue. Now, Mrs. Webb, every detail is important in the investigation of a homicide. Whom do you suspect of receiving the coat?
Look, Lieutenant, I hate to get into this.
Mr. Gale, If you please. This is my affair.
Matt Webb was my best friend. If you, Mrs. Webb, had been a little more understanding...
This is no time to fight with me.
Maybe we could organize this conversation a little bit.
You stay out of it, Rogue. This is a murder investigation. Now listen, all of you.
Oh, just a minute, Irvin. Look, Mrs. Webb, how about telling us a little more about the home life of you and your husband?
Rogue, if you don't shut up, I'm going to throw you out of this investigation.
Oh, just a minute. Gail, weren't you with Matt Webb at the Club Cuba last night?
Yes, I had dinner with him there.
Then you must have known who he was with and what he did later.
I have no idea what he did later in the evening. I left him a little after 8. At that time, his plans were to go home. At least that was my understanding.
Well, maybe you'll feel more like talking a little later, Gail. You can go now.
You can get me at the office anytime you want me.
Okay.
You better fix that cold.
Now, Mrs. Webb, you seem to think that your husband was involved with some woman.
Of course he was. That's how he got killed.
To whom do you think he gave the fur coat?
To his secretary, Helen Damon. He's been in love with her for the last year. She's been making a perfect fool of him.
Helen Damon. We'll have a talk with her.
Lieutenant Irvin dropped me by my office, and I took pen and racing form in hand and managed to forget all about killings not made at Hollywood Park until noon, when I left and met Betty Callahan at the Brown Derby. She was as full of information as a Chamber of Commerce brochure.
Richard, I want you to come with me to the jail. I want you to talk with Helen Damon.
Webb's secretary? Why?
I feel so sorry for her. Those homicide detectives have been grilling her all morning, and she's so tired and discouraged.
Well, wait a minute, Helen. Does it look like Helen did the job?
Well, yes. A man showed up at the police station this morning, and he said he saw a girl in a tweed coat with a tuxedo collar run down out of the hills last night and drive away in a Chrysler coupe, a blue one, just about the time of Webb's murder, and in the same locality.
And Helen Damon has a coat like that and drives a blue Chrysler coupe, right?
Yes. But, Richard, I don't think she did it.
Oh, just because she has big brown eyes, I suppose. Look, baby, cops don't make many mistakes. What did they find out about the gun?
Well, it was a .38 revolver that Mr. Webb kept in his desk at the office. There were no fingerprints on it. It was found in the weeds a little way from where the car was parked.
Look, Betty, honey, you're a newspaper reporter, not an investigator. So why don't you let the police take care of finding the killers? If Helen Damon did it, she'll get the book. If she didn't, she'll be okay. Hasn't she got any alibi for the time of the crime?
No, she hasn't. Oh, you have to go down there and talk to her. I promised her you would.
Oh, now, what business have you promising anybody that I'll take their case? Looks to me like this Helen Damon is as guilty as Engelbach. I don't want to get mixed up in a case like that.
I should have known that's the way you'd look at it. Just because she doesn't have much money to pay you.
But, baby, that's got nothing to do with it.
I have a couple of $100. I can pay you. I want to see that Helen Damon gets a fair deal.
Now, look, Betty, I'm not going to get mixed up in this case. That's final. You understand?
Rogue to see Helen Damon. I'll give you 10 minutes, Rogie.
Thanks, Olson. Hello there, Miss Damon. Betty Callahan, the reporter, told me you were expecting me.
I don't see how you can do me any good, Mr. Rogue. You've already decided that I did it. Nothing I can do to convince
Well,
you.
I know about the partial identification. Now, suppose you tell me where you were at the time the crime was committed.
All right. Last night at 9 o'clock, within a few minutes of 9 anyway, I got a call from Mr. Webb. I don't think it was Mr. Webb now, but I thought it was then. He asked me to meet him at his office. Said he had some important letters he had to get out at once.
Was he in the habit of having you work at night?
No, but it didn't seem unreasonable to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I put on my coat and went down to get in my car, which was parked in the parking lot next to my apartment building.
Hmm?
Just as I got into the car, somebody grabbed me from behind and held a cloth over my face. It was chloroform. When I came to, about 3 hours later, I was in my car, my coat was thrown over me, the car was back in the parking lot, and it had been driven about 15 miles. I know because I had it serviced yesterday, and the service record is on the dash.
You live at Hollywood?
Yes.
Oh. Oh, well, that's just about right for a drive to the Hollywood Hills. You're going to have trouble convincing a jury with a story like that. Now, look, Helen, I'm your friend. Is that story the truth?
Yes, it is, Mr. Rogue. I know you don't believe me. Nobody does.
You haven't the slightest idea what happened between 9 o'clock last night and midnight, right?
Yes, that's right. There's no way in the world I can prove I'm telling the truth. I couldn't figure out why anybody would do anything like that to me. I got up this morning and went to work. I didn't say anything to anybody because I...
You, live alone?
Yes.
Now, Helen, I want you to be frank with me. Were you, overly friendly with Matt Webb?
I liked him and admired him, that's all.
Mrs. Webb seems to think it went a little further than that.
Oh, no. I hardly knew him at all socially. He's taken me to dinner a few times, that's all. Oh, Mr. Rogue, do you think you can do anything to help me? I'm not a murderess.
Yeah. Tell me, do you know anything about a fur coat? A coat that Matt Webb bought for somebody, not his wife.
No, I don't know anything about it. I haven't done anything wrong. Can you get me out of here, Mr. Rogue?
I don't know. You haven't got much of a case.
I'll pay you. I have a little money saved.
Skip that. I'm doing this as a favor to a friend. Now, you sure you're on the level with me?
I've told you everything I know. I didn't kill him. He was a fine man.
When I left Helen Damon, I had a great inquisitiveness about a fur coat. I got in my car, fought all the other crazy California drivers to a standstill trying to park in front of Helen's apartment house. I got her apartment number off the register in the foyer and walked up one flight. The lock was easy pickings. I walked in, closed the door, and... Oh, I caught it right at the base of the skull. Like a turkey on the first Thanksgiving. My astral body left this world and floated up through eternity like a wisp of smoke, only paler. I was so glad to see Cloud 8, my home away from home. And gladder to see Ugor, my alter ego. Ugor was sitting there on a used Thunderbolt, his raisin-looking eyes sparkling with glee.
Hello, Rogie. Welcome home. You forgot to duck again, huh?
Oh, let me sleep. I'm tired.
Oh, you better snap out of it, Chiefy. You've got plenty of work to do.
Yeah, I know it, but I'll take care of it later. Go away.
No, can't, Rogie. You need a talking to. You can't lay down on a job now. Come on, snap out of it.
Oh, my head. Betty Callahan got me into this. Her and her hunches.
You've got the same hunch, and you know it, Rogie.
Oh, now you're reading my mind. Look, Midget.
Reading your mind. Look, Chiefy, I am your mind, and I'm telling you to get downstairs. You've got work to do.
Later.
Now, over you go, Rogie.
Oh, stop pushing, Ugor. I'm not well.
Over you go. Back to work. So long, Rogie.
Rogie. Snap out of it, Rogie. Hello, Irvin.
What happened to you?
I got hit on the head. Can't you see? What kind of a detective are you, anyway?
Now, take it easy. What were you doing here in Helen Damon's apartment?
I wasn't doing anything. I just opened the door and somebody let me have it.
What were you looking for up here?
Oh, I got a little bit inquisitive.
Oh, why?
Well, I'd had a talk with Helen Damon, and she didn't know anything about a fur coat.
That's funny.
Well, what's funny about it?
We just got a murder indictment against Helen Damon.
Oh, well, that's a long way from conviction.
Mm-hmm. And when I was up here this morning, there was no fur coat in that closet.
Yeah?
There's a fur coat in that closet now, Rogie. Peculiar, isn't it?
We'll return to our story in just a moment.
First, every woman can have beautiful hair. So it's a shame for any woman to put up with dull, dandruff-flecked hair when she could bring it back to its glorious natural beauty with regular use of Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo. There are several reasons why Fitch makes an ideal beauty treatment for all colors and textures of hair. For this clear amber liquid shampoo foams into mountains of rich, cleansing lather. And while it's cleansing, Fitch shampoo is also reconditioning your hair, giving the hair strands more vigor and elasticity, and leaving them with a lovely, silky sheen. Then, Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo is completely soluble in water and rinses out easily, leaving no dull film to mar the luster and dancing highlights of your hair. Next time, ask for an economical bottle of Fitch's Dandruff Remover Shampoo at your drug or toilet goods counter, or have a professional application at your barber or beauty shop. Now back to Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery.
Assorted and unrelated facts were whirling around in my massive intellect like neutrons around an atom. And they were just as much explosive in them as I could get if I could get them properly under control. So I got away from Urban and decided to drive out for a visit with Mrs. Matt Webb. As I pulled up at the same block with the Webb house, I saw Mrs. Webb get into her car and drive away. I followed her over Coldwater Canyon and out into the valley. When she pulled into the driveway of an early suburban white ranch house, I parked up the street. She went in. I took a look at the mailbox in front of the house. The name on that mailbox was F.R. Gale. I got that old familiar chill in the region of my solar plexus. I'd lucked into something and I knew it. I worked my way around to the rear of the house, as quiet as fallen snow. The back door was unlocked. I pussyfooted in, flowed up to the doors between the dining room where I was and the living room where Fred Gale stood talking with Mrs. Matt Webb.
Well, Marcia, may I be the first to congratulate you on that performance you gave for Lieutenant Urban and Rogue tonight?
You did very well yourself, Fred.
Now, suppose you tell me what you're doing out here.
Why, I had to see you. I needed a little moral support from you, Fred.
Yeah, I know. But this is the craziest thing you could have done, Marcia.
Well, you don't act as though you're very glad to see me.
Now, look, Marcia, we've gone to a lot of trouble to cover up the fact that we're friends, haven't we?
Friends? Is that what we are?
Oh,
friends?
You know I love you, Marcia. It's only that so much depends on us being smart just a little while longer. How do you know you weren't followed? You'll have us both in jail for murder. We've been smart so far. Why ruin it?
They don't suspect us. They have a murder indictment against Helen Damon. Aren't you going to kiss me, Fred?
Come here, sweetheart.
They kissed and then held it. I reached my gun out of my shoulder holster and readied myself for the pinch, but something held me back. You can call it second sight or luck or anything you like, but I couldn't move my feet, and while I was debating, they broke it up and started talking again. It was a very interesting conversation.
Everything's going to be wonderful for us now, isn't it?
Sure. You'll just stay away from me a little while until the case is settled. Everybody's forgotten the murder.
Darling, we'll always be sure of each other, won't we?
Of course.
Oh, Fred, I know I'm silly, but I worry. I don't know what I'd do if I ever lost you. I want you to do something for me. Promise me that you will.
Okay. I'll do anything for you, Marcia. If you'll only promise you'll be a good girl and get out of here and stay away from me until everything's all right again. You've got to be smart, baby.
I'll stay away. If you'll just help me. I want you to write a note like this one I've written. Read it.
Confession. I alone, unassisted, killed Matt Webb. Signed, Marcia Webb. Marcia, this is utter nonsense. If we can't trust each other now,
No. I want you to write a note like that in your own handwriting and give it to me. And I'll give you my confession and you give me yours. Then we know that nothing can ever separate us. You and I.
Oh, it's a stupid thing to do. Tear that note up. What if it got into the wrong hands?
Won't. Sit down here and write me one like it. Then I'll know that everything's all right.
She kissed him then and walked with him over to the desk, talking love all the way. She got a pen and some paper. She stood behind him with her arms around his neck as he started to write. I saw her free hand come up with a gun in it. As he finished the note, she placed the gun an inch from his temple, and I moved. Gale, duck!
You shot me. He shot me.
Rogue, yeah. You should be awfully glad to see me, Gale. In about another minute, you'd have been a suicide, and your girlfriend here would have been a wealthy widow.
Don't believe him. Don't believe him. It's a lie.
Oh, skip it, Mrs. Webb. Look, Gale, you see that gun your lovely collaborator dropped? Marcia. If I hadn't put that slug through her shoulder, she was going to put one through your head, sucker. She was slipping you the kiss of death.
He's lying, Fred. He's lying.
Why, you were going to kill me.
Sit down, Gale. Sit down. I'm running the show from here on out, and the little lady has a reserved seat in the gas chamber. Well, it didn't take much to convince Gale that Marcia's plan to kill him and leave the gun in his hand as he slumped over the desk. The note she asked him to write would have cinched his death as remorseful suicide, and Mrs. Webb would have had all of Matt Webb's money and a dead accomplice. She would have been as safe as an odds-on bet that Dick Tracy catches shoulders. Gale admitted his part in the plot to murder Webb and frame the innocent Helen Damon for the crime, and Gale got away with life. Marcia paid the full charge in the gas chamber. Oh, well, I've always said that there should be a little editing done on that old saying. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The last word should be deleted. Present company accepted, of course, ladies, but you men, you know what I mean. This is Dick Powell again, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed our story tonight. Ray Buffum wrote it. Leith Stevens composed and conducted the music, and Dee Engelbach produced and directed. Be with us again next Sunday, will you? We have a story for you about a summer resort, a lovely girl, and some newspaper clippings about a murder. We call it Cabin on the Lake. Must be a floating cabin. Thanks for listening, and now here's Jim Doyle.
Listen again next week at this same time to hear Dick Powell as Private Investigator Richard Rogue in Rogue's Gallery. By the way, Dick will next be seen in his newest Columbia picture, Johnny O'Clock.
Laugh a while, let a song be your style. Use Fitch shampoo. Don't despair, use your head, save your hair. Use Fitch shampoo.
After and between Fitch shampoos, you can keep your hair shining and manageable by using a few drops of Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic every day. Fitch's Ideal Hair Tonic is not sticky or greasy, yet it gives your hair that well-groomed look.
Welcome back. If you noticed at the final break, when Rogue came back to conveniently stumble on the two conspirators conversing, Dick Powell was really stumbling through his lines. And actually, I ran into the first instance I've had wherein an OTR detective actor swearing on the air. I actually went ahead and I cut it because I know a lot of folks would have found it offensive. And we have kids out there, and it wasn't actually part of the script. Didn't find any record of him getting into any, Dick Powell getting into any trouble with the FCC over it. Had it been observed and reported, it probably would have been an issue with the FCC or network censors anyway at the time, though not today. And really, it was just kind of this source of frustration thing, because he just really stumbled over those lines, and you have to appreciate how some of these absolutely complicated turns of phrases, particularly in the hard-boiled genres, are usually delivered so expertly. And sometimes, as in this case, the writers lost track somebody is going to have to try and read this over the air. And usually, no matter how hard the script that came through. But as this illustrates, it wasn't always easy. Well, we did receive some comments regarding our 500th episode special starring Dick Powell in Lux Radio Theater to the Ends of the Earth. And also we made a blog post where we embedded some video that Turner Classic Movies had of To the Ends of the Earth on their website. And Tim comments on this. They say that radio is better than movies because the pictures are better. This is one case where the opposite is true. When the slaves go overboard in the Lux production, the sailors are described as shoving them off the deck. In the film snippet, the captain releases the special anchor, and the whole lot of them are dragged after it like falling dominoes. I spent last weekend avoiding 9/11 footage. I've become inured to the collapsing towers and the panicky crowds running to outrace the smoke cloud like some horrible marathon, but the sight of the leapers still fills me with dread. The image of the slaves going over stuck with me all week. This was the real method that African slavers used after importation was banned in 1807. They were still smuggled into Charleston, but if Captain saw a revenue cutter advancing, he'd cut the anchor cable and send his human cargo to the ocean floor. And it was definitely a more terrifying way, the way that the movie portrayed it. It wasn't graphic like it would be today. It was very short, cutaway. The radio, not so much. I think the whole anchor thing would just be a little hard to explain in the limited time that you had to present a story on radio. And this, Lux is a great program, but this was one of its limitations because it was trying to take a movie, which is a visual medium, and translate it to radio. And sometimes it worked pretty well. Sometimes there were challenges. There were other programs that adapted novels and stories that had been made to movies, but they adapted directly from the novel or the story to the radio, and that could often work better. One case is the story Deadline at Dawn. Lux Radio Theater adapted the movie adaptation of Deadline at Dawn, and I listened to that, didn't care for that as much, and then I listened to the suspense adaptation of the same story, except they adapted from the original story and made it fit to radio. So kind of cutting out the middleman tend to work a little better, but this was still a good presentation overall despite the challenges. Tim goes on to say, that said, this was a great story, horrifyingly told but not exploitatively. A worthy choice for your 500th episode. Well done, great detectives of old-time radio. The script really brought out the worldwide scale of drug production and distribution without the Hollywood tendency to include exotic locations just for novelty's sake, like in the later James Bond movies. And he included a couple things of spoilers for the radio version, so I won't read those in case you decide to go back and listen to them. Harry Anslinger, mentioned repeatedly as Dick Powell's boss, really was the head of the Narcotics Bureau, so this production must have been made with the support of the U.S. government. Anslinger, to listen to the history rewritten by the hemp lobby, comes across as something of a clownish figure. I'll need to study him some more, take him a bit more seriously. Well, I'm glad that that's always a good idea. And that's one thing I always find fascinating about many old radio programs. It's the opportunity to hear history, how it happened, and how it was being viewed in the era it occurred, rather than just what we get as the retrospective through history. And it fills a lot of gaps in, and this story definitely helped in that regard. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Also received a comment from Andrew, who called it epic. And indeed it was. Alright, well that will do it for today. If you have our app or a premium site, we have another Dick Powell Lux Radio Theater extra that I think you're sure to enjoy. Join us tomorrow for Let George Do It, and next week another episode of Rogues Gallery. Well, this episode of Let George Do It is brought to you by our loyal listeners and their financial support. Thank you so much for your support. Today's episode of Let George Do It is called Solo in Whispers. And there seems to be a little bit of confusion as to how that should be spelled. Some websites have it as two words, S-O space L-O-W, rather than Solo and Whispers. Both could apply. However, Dennis at the Digital Deli, for his title, which is just the way it sounds, actually has the Long Beach Press Telegram, which listings included it with Solo and Whispers with just one word. So here now is Solo in Whispers.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. Solo in Whispers, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, really I do need your help to figure it out. Because it's rather the sort of thing that makes a man lose a lot of sleep. And at the age of 45, I find that sleep is almost as important as food. You see, I went to the gate this morning. Our place is out in the country. And there was a messenger with a package, and I signed for it. Nothing extraordinary there. And you'll probably think there's nothing extraordinary when you
have to sign for a package along with this letter.
Hey, what's this, Brooksy? Package?
Uh-huh, it came with a letter.
Well, what's in it?
Well, a record. I already unwrapped it. Anyway, Mr. Valentine...
Phonograph record. Huh. Looks like a blank one from here.
No, the other side, I guess, see?
Oh, yeah. But it's still blank in the middle. No label. Go on.
Anyway, Mr. Valentine, I'd appreciate a call from you on the subject of why it is unnecessary to explain my whisper. Whisper?
What's that? Is what?
Well, that's what he says. Why it is unnecessary to explain my whisper. Oh, well, maybe it isn't his. It's in quotes, George. And that's all. Sincerely, Pietro Seville.
Huh? Well, come on. Play the record. Here we are.
Okay. Pietro Seville, a man bothered by a whisper. You, too, can hear voices.
You can hear horns and drums, too, if you got it bad enough. Sounds like he got his records mixed. Yeah, I've heard that.
Him to the sun, Rimsky-Korsakov.
Angel, you should be on a quiz show. Only that's kind of a peculiar whisper, wouldn't you say? Maybe you just heard this played too much. It's too popular.
It's from an opera, George, Le Coq d'Or. Not the only one I remember. I saw it twice.
The who?
The Golden Cockerel by Rimsky.
I know. So I'm getting an education, but I don't see what
George, maybe Mr. Seville is bothered by a woman.
He sounded like the type.
That's what the opera's about, I think. It's a fantasy. It's about a king who's given this magic golden rooster to watch over him and his kingdom, and he finally strikes down the king himself with its beak.
How gay.
Queen. She sings this song. She's the one who makes a fool out of the king. She really takes him over the ropes, and yet he won't give her up.
'Twas ever thus. Nice melody, though, isn't it? Listen. We heard it all. Still no whisper.
No. What on earth was he talking about?
Brooksy, there's only one way to find out. That's to ask him right back.
Well, personally, I think he's a little off.
We'll soon find out. Hold everything.
Hello?
Hello. Mr. Pietro Seville, please. Will you call him?
Mr. Pietro Seville can't come to the telephone, Valentine. He's dead.
Hey, who is this? Riley?
Yeah, listen, Valentine. Get out of here fast, will you? Seville's been murdered. He was struck down by the golden beak of a rooster.
A rooster?
Yeah, you heard me. A thing called the golden cockerel.
Well,
Well, that's what somebody called it.
But it's just a fancy gold-headed cane.
Well, it's shaped like a beak, isn't it? A rooster's beak, Miss Brooks?
Seville was struck over the head with it, huh? Well, it's sure heavy enough.
Yeah, I'll say it was. His wife tacked a fancy name on it when she saw the thing lying beside the body. You see, this happens to be the house of the opera star, Pietro Seville.
Oh, so that's... And his wife?
Yeah, his wife's Lorna Seville, soprano.
Well, of course, Lorna Seville.
Uh-huh, so this record he sent was the right one. Opera all over the place.
Yeah, I suppose it was. Only who sent it to him? And why?
I told you what I said about the cook door, the story of it.
Yeah, sure, Miss Brooks. But this guy and his wife were happy enough, I think. They just got back from Europe.
Then why did she say golden cockerel the minute she saw this cane?
How should I know?
But what did she say she meant?
She didn't.
But didn't you ask her?
How could I? She fainted.
Well, maybe she heard the record her husband got. Was thinking about it, that's all.
Yeah, maybe a million things in a case like this. Guy gets a phonograph record with music from a certain opera and then gets killed by the same weapon. What kind of a case?
You know that record was homemade?
Huh?
Yes, you could tell. Oh, I don't mean the singing part, the music, but it must have been a re-recording. Someone must have taken the regular commercial record and copied it.
You know, it'd take a pretty fancy machine to do that on, wouldn't it?
That's what I mean, George.
A big console job with its own microphone and all kinds of stuff. Like that one right over there.
Hey.
Mind if I take a look? I brought the record along.
Hey, wait a minute, Riley.
Huh?
No other clues? Not one?
Oh, why ask me?
The body was right back there by the door?
Yeah, and the door was half open. So it could have been somebody from the outside or somebody from the inside.
And if it was outside, the murderer couldn't have been seen, huh?
Yeah. Oh, you two can own an exclusive hillside lot with a beautiful view of the rocks and the valley and not another house for over a half mile. You two can have privacy and never be seen.
All right, I get the idea. Nobody saw anything.
Yeah.
I'll meet you downtown, Riley. Right now, I'm going to send for Mrs. Seville.
Well, Mr. Valentine?
Mrs. Seville, you have a face that a man would never forget.
Well, most men notice my figure, too. I've been in a good many newspapers, Mr. Valentine. Sometimes the critics even notice my voice.
Oh, well, I'm not trying to offend. Everyone notices your voice. It's very wonderful. But I remember a picture about 2 years ago. You were mixed up in the breakup of the Carlotti Opera Company.
We both used to sing for Carlotti, Pietro and I. Why?
Oh, I don't know. I just remember it, that's all. There was a lot of talk in the scandal columns. Something about a fight.
What a lovely memory. Of course there was a fight. A beautiful fight. It took 3 stagehands to break it up, and a foolish young man from the chorus even went to the hospital, I'm told. Oh, you've never seen such a scandalous fight.
All I saw was that that's what broke up the opera company.
My husband and I had to leave for Europe, that's all. We had engagements to fill. Engagements, I tell you.
The cause of the fight was you and some playboy baritone.
Stop it.
All right, I'm sorry. It might have been just gossip.
It had nothing to do with this, Mr. Valentine. With Pietro's death. There's no conceivable connection. My husband and I were quite happy. Now, please, won't you leave me?
Yeah, Brooksy?
George, come here. I found it. The whisper.
What? What are you doing there?
The whisper. It was on the record. I said one side of it was blank, remember? But here, look. This just looked like a border. But it's 3 or 4 grooves right around the edge. Here, listen.
So that's what Seville was talking about.
I am sure it is unnecessary to explain my whisper, because the music on the other side will explain itself.
What?
Yes, that's all it is.
Here, play it again.
I am sure it is unnecessary to explain my whisper, because the record on the other side will explain itself.
And the music did explain itself, didn't it, George? The man who was killed by the golden cockerel.
Mrs. Seville, whose voice is that? The whisper? Don't you know?
No, I don't. Just a whisper.
That's why whoever it is whispers, to keep anyone from knowing.
You can close the machine now, Miss Brooks. My husband couldn't figure it out. I can't figure it out. I'm certain you can.
Well, sure, lady, but... Hey, Brooksy, is that the record you brought out here, the same one?
Of course it's
Huh?
Yes, George. You saw me bring it, the one Pietro Seville sent us, the one he received.
What makes you so positive, Mrs. Seville? And why didn't you want Miss Brooks playing around with this machine? Why have you been staring?
Mr. Valentine, please.
George.
Yeah, Brooksy. Another record, just like the other one.
Here, let me see. Here, play it. The same groove, and it's blank in the middle, like...
Sure, it is unnecessary to explain my whisper, because the music on the other side will explain itself.
Come on, turn it over.
But it's exactly the same. Looks just like the other one. George, it's not the same.
All right, Mrs. Seville, let's have the story on this record fast.
The record, Mr. Valentine? What about the record? Don't you know it? Aren't you familiar with my greatest success?
Salome.
Thank you, my dear. Yes, it's Salome. It's Salome's dance.
But this record, where did it come from?
You know, I rather wish I knew that myself. The postman brought it just this afternoon, and there didn't seem to be a return address.
To you, right? It came to you.
Yes, to me. Isn't that funny? Oh, no, Mr. Valentine, I don't know anything else. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going upstairs. I'm wanted upstairs.
George, she got a record, but she didn't want us to know about it. Even after her husband...
I know, but skip it. Now listen, Brooksy. What's this opera about? Well, come on, think.
I'm trying to remember. It's based on the Bible story, I guess.
Yeah?
Salome danced for King Herod. She demanded the head of John the Baptist.
Well, what happens to her?
I don't remember.
Get up there. Get after her, Mrs. Seville. Follow her upstairs. Whether she likes it or not, stay with her. I'm going to phone Riley.
She's not there, George. This is the butler, Paul.
Okay, Buster. Where did Mrs. Seville go?
Just outside, sir. What's wrong? I told the madam about the wire I took over the phone.
The wire?
Western Union. I wrote it down.
Here, give me that. I'm at my place down the canyon. Please come at once. Signed, Eric Stanton.
Place down the canyon?
It's less than a mile around the hill trail.
But who is it? Who's Eric Stanton?
He used to be with the Sevilles in the old Carlotti Opera Company. An old friend. A singer. A baritone.
Slow down, will you, Mrs. Seville?
Oh, I don't want you with me.
You're going to have to stand me, lady.
Oh, George, she'll sprain an ankle running on that narrow trail. All those rocks on the side of the hill.
I'll get her. I said slow down, lady.
All right, quick, I'll join you, but I don't...
What?
She didn't slip. The trail just gave way on her.
Oh, Brooksy. A rock slide. I'm afraid she's dead.
Oh.
Crushed her before she even knew what happened.
But that record, George, Salome. I remember now. At the end of the opera, Salome was crushed to death.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Third day out on your vacation motoring trip. Everybody's up bright and early, ready to get going again. New scenic splendor, new carefree vacation miles. But, car won't start. What's wrong? Dead battery. Well, that's only what might happen on your trip. To avoid such a delay, get a thorough battery checkup before you start out. It's a car-saver service you can get at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations. So why not have your battery checked tomorrow? They'll make sure the cables are free of corrosion, that water in the battery is at the proper level, and they'll take cell readings. Then, for your trip or for your everyday driving, you'll be sure of plenty of battery power for starting your car, for keeping lights bright, for better radio reception. Ask for this car-saver service at a standard station or an independent Chevron gas station, where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine.
Sure, it is unnecessary to explain my whisper, because the music on the other side will explain itself.
These few words on a record, and on the other side, music from an opera. The beautiful Lorna Seville received such a record with the music of Salome, and now she's dead, like Salome, crushed to death. Her husband, Pietro, the aging opera star, received his death notice in the form of music from Le Coq d'Or. He, too, died in the same way as the hero of that opera. If your name is George Valentine, you can't help accepting this case as a personal challenge.
Oh, if I'd only moved a little faster, I might have saved Lorna Seville.
Oh, no, George, you couldn't have helped her.
Ah, the trail was rigged in advance, Valentine. Don't you understand? Nobody ever used it, and it had been weakened so much that the weight of a mouse would have started the rocks rolling.
The telegram sent from that Eric Stanton brought her onto the trail.
Sure.
Hey, you're not going to start reading that book again, are you, Valentine?
The stories of the operas. I swiped it from the Seville's library, Riley.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not complaining. Go ahead. Find me an answer. I'd love one. How many operas are there? 100, maybe? And at least half of them ending in death? Real fancy dress-up deaths that somebody's copying.
Lieutenant.
Yes, Sergeant, what is it?
Hey, no point in going up to that other house, that Eric Stanton's place.
Why not?
What's
Yeah, the place is all boarded up. There hasn't been anybody in that house for months.
All right, Riley. The telegram was deliberately sent to get Lorna Seville killed. But before you start scaring yourself over what might happen to 50 other people, let's stick to what we know. Like that man Carlotti I told you about, the one who owned the opera. That's our job, Riley. Find Carlotti.
See, it used to be the Carlotti Opera, but now all I own is an empty theater. I am not what you would call a practicing impresario.
Mr. Carlotti, the company broke up 2 years ago, right?
When the Sevilles were singing here in town.
Oh, such wonderful voices, both of them. See, you are right.
Now, they left immediately for Europe, but it wasn't to fill a contract, was it? A lot more likely it was to break one. Yours. It was a big scandal and a fight and all kinds of things.
Oh, no, Mr. Valentine. I would not
That
say...
one man landed in the hospital, and it took 3 men.
Yes, I closed the opera. The next day, I have lost touch with everyone. It happens that way. But to blame...
When Pietro received his record, he sent it to me. But when his wife received one, even after she knew what had happened to Pietro, she kept quiet. On top of that, she gets a wire signed Eric Stanton. Do you see what I'm driving at?
Yes, it was Stanton. Always Stanton. He has such a smile, so many women, such a voice.
And in Cote d'Or, the king refused to give up the queen.
2 years ago. That was the reason for the fight. Pietro, he had just discovered, and Stanton, so foolhardy, self-confident. Poor Lorna was only confused, undecided. Yes, they fight. They even threatened to kill each other. Pietro kidnapped his wife to Europe, and Stanton, too, is gone to South America.
Uh-huh.
Everyone is upset, of course, but time is such a healer.
Mr. Carlotti, Lorna Seville kept quiet today because she thought she knew whose whisper it was, who sent the records. And she had to find out for herself.
Then I suppose I must tell you. Stanton is in town.
What? Brooksy, call Riley.
I see him in the street opposite Richter's Music Building a month ago. He's not singing this season, just the social visits. He has an apartment. I wish I could protect him more from what you are thinking.
Yeah, kind of you. But there's no time for that now.
This may be where Stan lives, but he sure ain't here now.
Hey, Riley, over here.
What is it, George?
We said it to take a re-recording to do this. Well, look there.
Look.
Yeah, Angel, built into the wall. Yeah, see?
Holy smoke, there's a turntable, a microphone, the works.
It's even more complete than the one at the Sevilles.
Wait a minute. In the wastebasket. Here, look. A record. A platter that's scratched and cracked. A couple of chips broken out of it.
A record just like the others.
Sure, even a professional couldn't make home recordings without making a few mistakes, lousing up a platter or two. Yeah?
Lieutenant, the janitor says Eric Stanton left here just a few minutes ago.
What's that?
Yeah. He went down to a place called Richter's. Some big music place where you buy phonograph records.
My dear sir, we sell more phonograph records than any other company in the city. Our classical section, third floor, has...
Never mind the advertising.
And when it comes to opera...
I just ask you if...
Our salesman has even...
I said wait a minute. Here, look at this.
Oh, dear me. What a beautiful bag.
That's better, Buster. Eric Stanton. Is he here?
The baritone? Nearly all great names come to us sooner or later.
He said, is he here now?
That's what I was going to say. Yes, upstairs buying records, I think. He comes quite often. Such a gay...
stairway's over here. Come on, Valentine.
Wait a minute, Riley. Stanton can't get away. Look, friend, do you know opera yourself? Come here, over here, the demonstration one.
Well, of course, my field is really instrumental, and at home I like bop.
I don't know how much I can get out of a crack record, but you listen.
Oh, dear me. It is quite mutilated, isn't it?
Skip it, just listen.
I really don't understand.
Valentine, that record's different from the others.
Of course it is, Riley. How about it, friend?
Oh, such a magnificent thing. It's Mozart. Yes, Mozart. Yes.
Mozart what?
It's from Don Giovanni, the champagne aria. It's such a shame the salesman can't sing it for you. Such a tragedy. Poor chap.
Don Giovanni, huh?
What?
Remember, I've been reading a book, Riley. This is one opera we're going to beat to the final curtain.
Hey, what's that?
Don't you know? Step on it. Run.
Burglar alarm?
No, it's not. Come on, Riley. Hey, listen.
It's the same record. Giovanni.
Sure. Somebody's even got the stage set for it. Stanton. Stanton, where are you?
Well, he's not here, Valentine.
Those booze. Try those booze. You've only got a minute.
What?
Don't you smell the smoke? That bell was the fire alarm. Hey, Stanton!
But how do you know he's...
Here, Riley, this one. Oh, it's locked. In the opera, Don Giovanni couldn't escape the fires that were there to burn him.
Here, we'll stand back, will you? Wait a minute.
Come on, once more. Let's hit it together.
Hey, he's passed out. Hurry.
Sure. There's still plenty of time.
Well, congratulations, Valentine. The score's picking up.
So is the murderers, Riley. So is the murderers. Well, this is the place, Brooksy. Shut the street door.
Lieutenant Riley still back at the fire?
Taking Eric Stanton to the hospital. Here we are, up these iron steps.
Yeah. It's so dark. Nothing emptier than an empty theater, is there?
Or an opera house backstage. But the office must be just ahead up there. Brooksy, I could have waited for Stanton to wake up, but somehow I think the murderer will be moving fast right now. Here we are. Signor Milo Carlotti. No casting today, no singers required.
Such dusty signs.
Not here. The place is empty.
Yeah. George, are you sure Stanton knows?
Oh, not by any clues. It's not the kind of a case. There's a madman, but not a madman who goes around killing everybody.
Well, all those people were tied up together. Lorna Seville, her husband, Eric Stanton, 2 years ago.
More than that, Brooksy. They wrecked things together. Even though they probably never realized how much trouble they caused with their explosive little love triangle.
It made Mr. Carlotti close his opera.
There's a lot of things I still don't know myself. The character of Don Giovanni, though, that helps.
How?
It really ties the murders up with that rough and ready night 2 years ago. Lorna, the temptress, dies like Salome. Pietro, the old fool in the coke door. And now Don Giovanni. It's Don Juan, the playboy, the libertine. Typecasting.
Oh, but such an involved plan of vengeance for anyone to...
Wait a minute.
George.
You are there, aren't you? Of course. The door is open.
It's him. Quick, shut it.
No, wait a minute. Who is it?
Yes. You are there. I'll come up.
George, he's on the steps.
This whisper. That's what we've been wrong about, Brooksy. Thinking it was somebody hiding his real voice.
It is so nice to find you here, senor.
That guy isn't Carlotti. It's somebody coming here to kill him.
But so many steps, senor.
The whisper that Stanton must have recognized and gone straight to confront, to ask why. A man who has to talk that way, who can't talk any way else. Sure, that's why he whispers.
Now, Mr. Carlotti, I shall tell you what I've done, what I'll do to you. What...
Oh, no, you don't, Buster.
Let go. Who are you?
Well, we might ask you the same question.
I'm not so sure, Angel. Maybe we can guess. Who could have locked Stanton in that booth and set that fire? Who'd be in the best place to make phonograph records? Who'd have a chip on his shoulder big enough to kill people because he lost his voice?
It was greater than Stanton's. It was greater than Seville's.
Huh?
Carlotti never would admit it, but it was. My voice, mine. Listen to it. For 2 years, just an echo.
George?
I know, friend. You're pretty sorry for yourself, aren't you? You work in the music store, don't you? The salesman there.
Yes, salesman, me.
The one the floor walker said had sung an opera. Said it was so tragic, such a shame you couldn't sing for us now.
No. I will sing if you
There's
like.
somebody else who got hurt in the big fight when it took 3 stagehands to break it up.
And a foolish man from the chorus was even sent to the hospital.
I should have sung leading roles, but I was knocked to the floor. The stage brace hit my throat. It was their fault. We closed the company. I never had another chance until now, until...
George! Hey!
Follow your fall.
The railing! Look out! George!
He went right over it, Brooksy.
Oh, he's not moving. He hit the floor. He hit the stage.
Well, maybe that's what he always wanted. Center stage. But I'm afraid there's no opera that ends this way.
It was a terrible thing that happened to him. A singer to lose his voice. And often just an accident. A thoughtless quarrel between some other people, and he was just a bystander.
That was just his version, Miss Brooks. They didn't know he'd been hurt that badly. Stanton even said he went around to the hospital afterwards, but the guy wouldn't even see him. And Carlotti offered financial help, but the guy turned him down.
Carlotti says he never had a voice in the first place. Just a failure who wanted something to blame it on.
Yeah. Boy, I thought mysteries were rough, but grand opera. Holy smoke. Bury 'em alive, burn 'em up, stab each other.
You're not
hit 'em.
kidding. So let's forget it for a while and get some different kind of music.
All right, darling. I'll calm you down with the radio.
Good.
Rippling rhythm, maybe? Nice, sweet jazz.
That's it, Angel. Sentimental little stuff that relaxes.
I'll be glad when you're dead, you rascal, you.
Oh, no.
When you turn off the main highways this summer into dusty, dry roads, remember that nothing can harm those precision-fitted parts in your car's engine faster than oil contaminated by dirt and dust. So for extra protection, use RPM motor oil and have it changed at regular intervals. Ask year-round rural motorists. They'll tell you more people prefer RPM motor oil than any other brand. The reason RPM is first choice where driving's toughest is clear enough. RPM is compounded to keep engines clean and to prevent damage of fine engine parts by foreign matter. At the regular drain and refill period, grit, dust, and carbon particles are drained out with the used oil. And that's just one of the common sense reasons why RPM is first choice where driving's toughest. Why it's the best engine insurance you can buy. Why not start giving your car longer engine life tomorrow? Just ask for RPM motor oil. Ask at standard stations and independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Wally Mayer is Lieutenant Riley. Irene Tedrow was heard as Lorna, Norman Fields as Carlotti, Bill Boucher as Seville, Ed Osborne as the Man, the music clerk, and Bob Griffin as the Whisperer. The music is arranged and presented by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. And it's kind of an interesting take on the whole opera scene. because we tend to have an association of opera as something very staid and civilized until we think about some of the plots. I particularly love the irony of the end of this episode, where they turned on the radio and they heard some violent jazz song. Now, if you were making an episode like this today, you'd turn on the radio, it'd be another style of music, but it could be something very similar. It seems a human pattern that we don't just sing about nice things. I will admit I've heard this one before. This was on the Radio Archives Volume 4 set, and so are the next two. The first time I listened to it, I did not get the identity of the killer until George did. Listening through it this time, I did catch the clues. So, good at figuring out these mysteries once I've heard it explained once. Alright, well that will do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes, and next week another episode of Let George Do It. Well, before we do get started, I want to let you know that this show was brought to you by the financial support of our listeners. Thank you so much for your support. Here now is today's episode of Sherlock Holmes. This one's called The Affair of the Politician, The Lighthouse, and The Train Cormorant. A bit of a wordy title, but here goes.
The makers of Clippercraft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories are based upon the character of Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and the dramatizations are by Edith Meiser. And now for our weekly visit to the familiar firelit study of our old friend, Dr. Watson. We open the door and find the good doctor on his hands and knees rummaging through a travel-worn and battered tin dispatch box. Great Caesar's ghost, don't tell me that's the one, the famous box containing the records of Sherlock Holmes' unpublished cases.
It is indeed, Mr. Harris, it is indeed.
But I thought that was supposed to be kept deep in the vaults of the Bank of Cox and Company of Charing Cross.
Oh, not during the war, it wasn't, thank heaven. The bank was hit twice, you may remember. Yes, at the very beginning of the late unpleasantness, the government evacuated this box, along with several other notable British documents, such as certain Shakespeare folios, to a safe place in the country.
Oh, I see. And they've just been returned to you now? Why the delay, Doctor?
Would you believe it? They told me these papers were too valuable to be in private ownership. They claim they belong in the British Museum. I told them they could put these records in the British Museum when Holmes is safely buried in Westminster Abbey.
A great many years from now, let's hope.
Amen. Well, now, yes, I've been going over these files to see if I couldn't find our subject for tonight's story. Yes, I think I can do no better than relate this one. The one to which Holmes invariably referred as the affair of the politician, the lighthouse, and the trained cormorant. But good heavens, where are my manners? Here you are, panting to say a few well-chosen words on behalf of those very generous gentlemen, our sponsors. Go ahead, Mr. Harris, go ahead.
With pleasure, Dr. Watson. And my story today is very simple, but very important. It's a tale of the greatest values in clothes the American public has ever seen. Values that have rhyme and reason behind them, that are the result of a carefully laid out plan. Manufacturing ingenuity and a really great distribution idea make it possible for you to buy superlatively fine Clippercraft clothes at astonishingly low prices. Yes, and right in your own local independent store where friendly attention is traditionally yours. Through the Clippercraft plan, 924 leading stores across America have concentrated their buying power, bringing you tremendous savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. Take a look at Clippercraft's expensive-looking suits at only $35 and $40, with a few deluxe models at $43.75. And Clippercraft top coats and overcoats, too, at only $30 to $40. and sport jackets at only $24. You don't have to be a Sherlock Holmes to solve your clothes problem this fall. Simply compare Clippercraft with clothes selling for many dollars more. And now to get back to the politician, the Lighthouse, and the trained Cormorant. What exactly is a cormorant, Dr. Watson?
A largish bird, Mr. Harris, that is inordinately fond of fish, which it dives into the water to catch. The word cormorant is a French derivation. Cor meaning raven, and marin meaning marine.
Oh, yes, the raven of the sea. Sounds vaguely sinister, Dr. Watson.
It was, Mr. Harris, it was indeed. This particular cormorant, whose name was Tika, was directly responsible for the death of the disreputable old baggage who, Oh, there I go, getting ahead of myself again. To begin at the beginning, it was a cold, wet November night. A Saturday night, to be exact. Holmes, overcome with the restless energy which sometimes burned inside him like a seething volcano, had insisted on a visit to the Port of London, the Chinese section of it that is so often referred to in tones of awe and terror as Limehouse. We had just turned off West India Dock Road. Against the sky rose Limehouse Church, the one thing of beauty in a sordid landscape. Yellow and brown men pattered by on slippered feet. Strange voices, whispering in strange tongues, crept out of dark corners. The air was heavy with the stench of betel nuts, shandu, and fried fish. A clinging mist crept in off the river. In the channel, a foghorn wailed like a lost soul. Holmes, what's the point of all this meandering? First up one dilapidated alley, then down the next. I'm frozen to the bone. Let's get home before someone slits our throats from behind.
A nice trick if it can be done, Watson. No, a stab in the back, or perhaps a bit of thuggy with a fine silken cord would be more in keeping with this neighborhood.
What's the good of all this prowling about?
But, Watson, we promised Mrs. Hudson we'd bring her some tea. Some suet sen in little 2-ounce packets at 7 each. A shy little tea to fill the hour of 4 to 5 with delicate scents and dreams. The slop she's been giving us lately is enough to rot the lining of one's stomach.
Well, then, let's buy the stuff and go home. That is, if you can remember where the shop is.
It's just across the crazy bridge up ahead there that leads to the Isle of Dogs. A small spice shop run by my good friend Sam Ling Lee.
Well, then, let's go there and get it over with.
Impatience, Watson, is the curse of our Western civilization. Always in a hurry. Never taking time to taste, to savor, really to observe life.
Oh, what is there worth observing in this God-forsaken district, I'd like to know?
Quick, Watson, doesn't duck into this doorway.
You dirty little thief! I'll fix you!
Good Lord, Holmes, that man was chasing her with a stiletto. After them down the next alley.
Too late, Watson.
Great Scott, Holmes. Aren't you going to do something?
What is there to do, Watson? That poor, tortured soul. She's better off dead.
Holmes, you are a cold-blooded fish. At least we could try to catch the man who stabbed her.
That is a job for the official police. We must leave something for them to do, you know. Incidents like this occur every day in Limehouse. No, the individual I'd like to bring to justice is the real murderer in this and 100 other cases.
Who's that?
The purveyor of little white packages like the one that poor frantic derelict clutched so tightly in her hand. The chief of the outfit which peddles death and decay in the form of exotic dreams.
You know who he is?
Naturally. The annoying part of the situation is that I've been completely unable to persuade any of his victims to testify against him. They're all so tragically dependent on him for his filthy wares. Oh, but enough of that. What you've just witnessed is commonplace. But here comes something I think you'll admit is rather unusual, even in Limehouse.
Yes, what do you mean?
Look there, across the street, Watson. Ever see a man take a bird for a walk? It's Paru, the crippled Lascar, taking Tika for his nightly outing. They're coming down the steps of the house across the way.
They're crossing the street. That's a curious-looking bird. It waddles like a duck, but its beak is different. His neck is almost as long as a swan's.
That, Watson, is a cormorant, a very intelligent biped. In many tropical countries, the natives train them to catch fish.
Do not fear, my beautiful Tika. The men will not harm you. Paru will protect his Tika. Careful. Here the stones are sharp.
Well, I'll be...
Undoubtedly, Watson. Paru couldn't be more attached to Tika if he were his own son.
But did you see the bird's eyes? They shone yellow in the light of the street lamp like a cat's.
Yes, many of the natives hereabouts are afraid of the bird. They say he has the evil eye. Perhaps that's why Paru and Tika are considered star boarders at the Lighthouse across the way.
The Lighthouse?
It's the name of the most notorious lodging house in all of Limehouse. Chinese, Lascars, and East Indians sleep there, 10 and 12 to a room on the bare floors or on mildewed mattresses. Tika and Paru sleep curled up in a closet on the top floor. At least they have privacy.
Charming place. Why in heaven's name don't the authorities clean it out?
Authority around here, Watson, is Harry Hawkins, called Handsome Harry by the natives because he's so definitely the opposite. Mr. Hawkins not only owns most of the houses in this area, he's councilman for this district.
Yes, but surely it's not good business to let your property go to rack and ruin like that place across the way.
The Lighthouse, Watson, is run by a vicious old reprobate who's known as Mother Fishface, partly because she has no teeth and a cold and fishy eye, and partly because she runs a fish house in the kitchen under the steps, where she dispenses decayed fish and chips at twopence a portion to the poor starving wretches who inhabit the rooms upstairs. Mother Fishface is the only one who dares talk back to Mr. Hawkins. She's the only one who dares to be late with her rent. In fact, it's rumored that she has something on the old boy, and he's definitely afraid of her.
Knows where the body's buried, eh, Holmes?
Or how he procures the opium and hashish he undoubtedly deals in. I suspect most of her boarders are smugglers of the vile stuff.
So we came down here for the purpose of buying tea for Mrs. Hudson, and now we suddenly seem to be interested in a dope-running outfit. Holmes, you don't fool me for a moment.
5 years' association with Sherlock Holmes seems to have sharpened your powers of observation, my dear Watson.
Well,
Quiet, Watson. Quick. Slip behind this wall. Here comes Mr. Hawkins on his weekly collection rounds.
Open up there. Saturday night. Rent's due.
Here's your money, Mr. Hawkins. Blast you. Charming fellow, Mr. Hawkins.
Quiet, Watson. He's about to knock on the kitchen door opposite. Let's see what happens at the lighthouse.
Hi there, Mother. It's me, Handsome Harry, come to pay you a visit.
What do you want, you old fool?
What would I want, dearie? It's Saturday night, rent night. You're a week behind now.
Supposing I am. You ain't starving. You can wait, can't you?
No, old girl. You know I wouldn't press me old sweetheart. Here, look. I brought you a present. A fine bottle of gin.
What's wrong with it? Is it poisoned?
Oh, have your little joke, won't you, dearie?
No, I don't think you do a thing like that, Harry. The day they find me murdered, that's the day you'll wish you'd never been born.
How you do run on. If anything was to happen to you, you know it'd break me heart.
Wouldn't it just? Here comes that cripple and his bleeding bird. It's always sneaking into me door and making away with a fish.
Them birds has a weakness for fish.
Well, if he don't keep out of my kitchen, it'll be the weakness that finishes him. Hey, you there, Peru.
Yes, Madam Fishface.
Keep your dirty bird out of my kitchen, and don't you call me madam.
My Tika is not as dirty as your kitchen. And as for your fish, I would not feed it to a swine, much less my beautiful Tika.
There he goes, sticking his head in the door. Here, get out, you.
Stop!
Go on.
Stop! Do not raise that broom to my Tika.
Not raise the broom, is it? Listen to me, you slimy heathen. That bird comes into my kitchen once more, and I'll wring his bleeding neck.
You listen to me, Madam Fishface, and listen well. You touch one feather of Tika's beautiful neck, and I will kill you. I will kill you dead.
Here, now, that's enough. I'll have no one threatening Mother Fishface.
You heard what he said. You heard him. There. Out he goes, out of my house. Let him sleep in the streets. Let him sleep in the gutter with his dirty bird.
Now, Mother, don't you get your danded up. Go on in and drink your bottle. That's a good girl. It's Saturday night, remember? You got a little spree coming to you.
I know what I'm doing. No one has to tell me.
Come, Tika. We do not enter her filthy premises again. We go sleep in the churchyard. It is warmer than Madam Fishface's heart.
Well, that little commotion seems to have resolved itself, eh, Mr. Holmes?
I wonder. At any rate, the fog's lifted a bit. We'd better get around to Sam Lee's place before he shuts up his shop. I could do with a dish of hot tea.
A dish? It'd take a gallon to warm me up.
Well, come along, then. It's no good loitering at Mother Fishface's door any longer, Mr. Hawkins. I fancy she and her bottle are locked in for the weekend.
Oh, and Braid. Oh, it's you. And what is the eminent Mr. Sherlock Holmes snooping around here for, eh?
Snooping? My dear Mr. Hawkins, you underrate me.
Dr. Watson and I were merely enjoying the local color. You have such lurid local color in this district.
Haven't you?
Delicious. The true Lapsang Souchang. Smoky, with a suggestion of the true tarred rope flavor.
Not bad. Could do with a spot of rum in it, though.
Typically British reaction, Watson. The Englishman's always insulting his palate and desecrating his tea with surpluses. Cream, milk, rum, even nasty little pieces of lemon. At any rate, the libation served its purpose. It's thawed you out.
I've drunk so much tea, I'm awash. My back teeth are practically floating.
Never mind, you look less blue around the gills.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't use that expression, Holmes. Brings back that horrible old woman's face. You see, she did look like a fish, you know, a dead fish. Hello. Look out of the window. Here's handsome Harry running down the street.
Yes, seems to be headed in this direction. Yes, here he comes.
Oh, Mr. Holmes. Oh, thank heavens you're here. And your friend, too. I think you said he was a doctor.
Yes, I'm a medical man. What seems to be the trouble, Mr. Hawkins?
You better come right away. She'll be needing you, no mistake.
Who'll be needing whom? What's happened?
It's Mother Fishface. After I'd finished my collections, I went back to tell her about the plumbers coming in on Monday. But the door was locked, and she wouldn't answer.
Probably the result of too rapid absorption of the bottle you left behind.
Oh, you're right here. Her not answering the door wouldn't upset me most times. Only tonight there's a great smell of gas leaking out around it.
Gas? Hurry, Watson. Let's hope we're not too late.
Here we are. 2 steps down. Careful. Top one's loose.
Smell of gas. Very pronounced, eh, Holmes?
Quite. Door locked.
Shall I break it down?
Windows quicker. Stand back. I'll use this loose brick.
Phew, what a stench. Stale fish and gas.
Give it a chance to clear for a moment.
I say, there she is, Holmes. You can see her lying there behind the table. But what's that draped across her leg like a snake?
It's not a snake, Watson. It's Tika's neck. The bird is doubtless lying beside her, hidden by the body.
Tika!
Come on, over the sill, girl.
Tika! Did someone see Tika? I look everywhere for him. I am asleep on a grave, and Tika sits on the tombstone. When I wake up, he's gone.
He's in there, Paru. I'm afraid we've come too late.
Tika! My beautiful Tika! She has destroyed him.
All right, come in, all of you.
I kill her. I slit her throat.
Paru, put away that knife. And take the bird outside. Try artificial respiration. Don't waste any time. Watson, you look out for the old woman.
My pretty, my beautiful.
Here, I better turn off this here gas jet on the stove. It's wide open.
Don't touch it. But confound it, did you have to do that?
Well, you didn't want to asphyxiate a lot of us, did you?
No. But I did want to examine that handle for fingerprints.
It's no go, Holmes. I can't bring her round. She's turning cold.
Yes, gas poisoning. That's what finished her. Unusually florid face. Gas poisoning complicated by cerebral thrombosis brought on by alcohol and high blood pressure.
Yes, I noticed the uneven dilation of her pupils.
Yes.
Poor old dear. One never knows, eh, Mr. Holmes? Who'd have thought the next time I saw her she'd be lying there like that, cold as a mackerel?
But if she wanted to commit suicide, Mr. Hawkins, why was only one gas jet open? Why not turn on the lot, eh, Holmes?
I doubt very much if it was suicide, Watson.
You don't mean it's murder? But the door was locked. No one could have got in.
Well, that's right, Mr. Holmes. She never gave no one the key. It must have been accidental. Or at least that's what it was supposed to look like.
What brings you to that fascinating conclusion, Mr. Hawkins?
It was that bird what did it, mark my words. Time and again he knocked that gas jet open. Always old Mother Fishface would scream at him and shut it off. Only tonight, like as not, she was too drunk to notice.
Drunk from the gin you brought her?
I always brought her a bottle of gin on Saturday nights. It was that dirty Lascar did it. You heard him say he'd kill her. He knew she'd be drunk, and he shoved his bird in here. He did it, knowing he'd turn on the gas, reaching for a fish frying on the stove.
Yes, there was a fish on the stove. But it was not frying because there's no frying pan. If there had been, the gas would have been lit, and there'd have been no chance for it to escape and fill the room. Yes, there was a fish on the stove, carefully draped across this handle. You'll notice that it's still greasy and smells rather strongly of mackerel. These scratches, I imagine, were caused by the bird's beak as he snatched at the fish, thereby pushing the handle and opening the jet.
Oh, that's what I said. That dirty heathen pushed his scrawny old bird in here, knowing Mother Fishface was lying helpless drunk with no way of protecting herself.
And how did he manage to push the bird in here with all the doors and windows locked?
Oh, I see what you mean. And it couldn't have been murder. It was accidental, like. The bird flew himself in.
And how did he manage to do that?
Oh, through that little trapdoor. Up there beside the window. It's got a little swinging hinge to it. So's the fish peddler could deliver fish through it when Mother Fishface wasn't home. That blinking bird, he flew up there, he did, shoved open the trap, and flew down into the room. What happened next was just like you deduced it, Mr. Holmes. It must have been. Poor old Mother Fishface, murdered accidental by a bird.
Very interesting theory, Mr. Hawkins, but unfortunately it does not jibe with the facts.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Simply this, Watson. The bird couldn't have flown in because it so happens that this particular member of the feathered tribe is an Anopterum harrisi, or Harris cormorant, which occurs only on the Galapagos Islands. It is entirely flightless.
You mean it can't fly?
Not any farther than Dr. Watson.
But it did get in here somehow, Holmes. You'll have to admit that.
Quite. The cormorant was introduced into this kitchen by the only person, other than old Mother Fishface, who had the key to that door.
Who's that?
You, Mr. Hawkins, the landlord.
Rubbish. Why should I be wanting to kill the old girl? She was my best tenant.
You killed her because you suspected she was going to split to the port authorities. You got wind of the fact they'd sent me down here to get her story.
You can't prove it. You can't prove a blasted thing. Supposing you have got my fingerprints in that gas jet. Dr. Watson here is witness to the fact that he saw me turn it off.
Is that so, Holmes?
Yeah, but you'll not find my fingerprints in the lock or in the doorknob, neither.
I wondered why they were wiped clean. You were here earlier this evening. Your fingerprints should have been on the doorknob.
Well, they ain't now. You can't convict me on that.
What about the odor of fish that clings to your hands? Too bad you chose mackerel to lure Tika. Such a smelly fish. Furthermore, the notes on the papers which Watson discovered inside the woman's bodice
but Holmes,
will convict you of conducting a despicable and entirely illegal trade in opium and other... Why, Mr. Hawkins, where are you going?
Oh, I'm getting out. I won't get me. Now that the tech's going to lay his hands on me.
Holmes, why didn't you stop him?
He'll be stopped, never fear. The authorities have had the place surrounded ever since we left the tea house. Sam Lee is my go-between. Or didn't you guess?
You know dashed well I didn't. Furthermore, I don't know what you're talking about when you mention the papers I found in Mother Fishface's bodice. There weren't any papers.
I know, Watson. Bluff. Pure bluff. The important thing is Hawkins thinks we've found those papers. It's remarkable how talkative the average criminal becomes once he thinks the jig's up. The port authorities should have no trouble in finding out all they want to know. Yes, at last, the chief of this dope smuggling ring and the cause of untold human misery will be safely behind bars.
Sir Holmes, did you hear that?
Yes, it's Tika. I thought Paru might be able to bring him round. You see, he didn't have as much alcohol in his system as Mother Fishface. Let that be a lesson to you, Watson.
You go to blazes.
It's a problem for the average family these days. Practically every necessity costs more, and most family budgets are not elastic. But there's one thing a man can buy today that gives him the most for his money he's ever known. Yes, even these days. Without the sacrifice of quality, you can buy really fine Clippercraft clothes for far less than ordinary clothes cost elsewhere. And in your own local independent store, where you get friendly personal attention. It's all made possible by the Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores from coast to coast. Stores you can trust. Stores where Clippercraft quality is still sold at amazingly low prices. Even today, Clippercraft suits are only $35 and $40, with a few special numbers at $43.75. Even today, top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sport jackets but $24. Selling beautifully tailored, expensive clothes, inexpensive in price, at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
The leading stores in the metropolitan area that bring you Clippercraft clothes are Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th Street, Manhattan, Abraham and Straus, Brooklyn, the Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge, Newark, New Jersey, and the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue, Jamaica. These great, courteous, and friendly stores are proud to add their names to that of Clippercraft in the label of your suit, top coat, sports jacket, and overcoat.
And now, Dr. Watson, did they succeed in convicting the handsome Mr. Harry Hawkins?
They did indeed, Mr. Harris. They did indeed. Mr. Hawkins spilled the beans, as you say, with very little persuasion. As a matter of fact, Mother Fishface did have quite a few incriminating records tucked away carefully, which we subsequently found.
Hidden in an old teapot or the family flour barrel, no doubt.
Hidden away in a vault in the bank in Threadneedle Street, together with a very handsome collection of English banknotes.
Thrifty old gal. Who inherited the money, Doctor?
Holmes saw to it that the money went to the Limehouse Mission for Stranded Seamen. He also arranged for Peru to spend his declining years there. He even managed to wangle a permission for him to keep Tika perched on the foot of his bed.
I guess there's nothing that can't be done if Sherlock Holmes sets his mind to it.
I agree, Mr. Harris. Of course, I wouldn't want Holmes to know about it.
When did Holmes first suspect that Hawkins had murdered old Mother Fishface, Doctor?
Oh, he was pretty sure of it, Mr. Harris, when he realized Hawkins had run for a doctor without first stopping to break a window or turn off the gas.
In other words, Hawkins was taking no chances the old girl might come to.
That's about the size of it.
And now I wonder if you'd like to give us an idea about what we can look forward to next week, Dr. Watson.
Well, now, let me see. I think that next week I'll tell you how witchcraft suddenly came to life again in the west of England, and how the investigation of a fairy ring in the grass and a weather-beaten broomstick covered with medieval recipe for flying ointment led Holmes to one of the most diabolical criminals he ever encountered. I call it the Laughing Lemur of High Tower Heath.
Sounds appropriate for what is practically Halloween.
Why do you think I chose it, Mr. Harris? Why do you think I chose it?
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, with special music by Albert Berman. Holmes is played by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Your National Guard is destined to play a more important part than ever before in America's security plans. The National Guard offers young men regular Army pay and training without interference with their normal civilian life. If you are between the ages of 17 and 35, married or single, join your local unit of the National Guard. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in the Laughing Lemur of Hightower Heath. If you'd like to attend the Sherlock Holmes broadcasts in New York, see your local Clipper Craft dealer. He'll tell you how to obtain your tickets. This is Cy Harris speaking for Clipper Craft Clothes. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, Holmes and Watson tend to spat a bit more than in most other versions. Still, this was a very atmospheric case. I don't know if the identity of the murderer was much in doubt. The intro was kind of interesting, with Watson having the idea of burying Sherlock Holmes in Westminster Abbey, which I guess, if Holmes were a real person, would make sense, though he would be the only private detective buried there. But then again, Sherlock Holmes isn't just any private detective. All right, well, we do have one listener comment. It's just a simple great shows from Podcast Alley. And that'll actually do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, last week, we left off with the first show of 1952 from January 5th. Well, this episode was aired 6 months later, on July the 2nd. However, there was only one episode in between. On January 12th, The Baxter Matter aired, and then after that, Johnny Dollar left the air. In terms of the reasons for this, I couldn't find any airtight explanations. But here's what it looks like. At this point in his career, Edmund O'Brien was becoming a bona fide star. He was only a couple years away from his first Academy Award. And 1951 had marked a historic year for radio and television. It was the first year that television brought in more advertising revenue than radio. And there was a lot of money for actors to appear on television. At the same time, radio stations had to begin to pare down their budgets to survive. So that economic dynamic on the part of O'Brien and or CBS probably had a lot more to do with Johnny Dollar leaving the air than concerns over something such as ratings, given that CBS invited Edmund O'Brien back to do a summer series of Johnny Dollar. And this was actually the second of 4 years that CBS did this sort of thing. In 1950, Philip Marlowe was canceled, and in 1951, Gerald Moore returned with a summer series. Richard Diamond in 1953 had been off the air for some time, but CBS actually went ahead and ran reruns in the summer of 1953. And in 1953, Broadway's My Beat was canceled, but would return in the summer of 1954. This was the second of 4 years that this occurred. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a listen to this episode. Our last chance to hear from Edmund O'Brien is yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But before we do, I want to encourage you, as you make your travel plans, remember JohnnyDollarAir.com. JohnnyDollarAir.com is powered by Priceline, so you can save money by either naming your own price on hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, and even more. Or you can choose from great published fares, or save even more money by getting a package of such as hotel and airline ticket, or hotel, airline ticket, and rental car. And you help to support the great detectives of old-time radio. Well, here now is the very last episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, featuring Edmund O'Brien. It's the Amelia Harwell matter.
This treat that gives you chewing enjoyment presents for your listening enjoyment Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
George Parker, Johnny, Corinthian Ulrich.
Sure, George. How are you?
In need of an investigator. Can you take a case for us?
I've been sitting here waiting for one.
You've got it. Big policy holder on Cape Cod, Mrs. Thomas Harwell. She died from poison.
That's rare these days. I'll be over in about 30 minutes. Listen to the rest of it.
The makers of Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum bring you Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum refreshes you. Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum gives you real chewing enjoyment. Yes, for chewing enjoyment plus refreshment, it's Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum. The lively, delicious flavor of Wrigley's Spearmint cools your mouth, helps keep your throat moist, and gives you a nice little lift. The good, smooth chewing of Wrigley's Spearmint helps keep you feeling fresh and alert, adds enjoyment to whatever you're doing. So for chewing enjoyment plus refreshment, treat yourself often to Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum. Healthful, refreshing, delicious.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Amelia Harwell matter. Expense account item 1, $250, cab fare from my apartment to the Corinthian building in the office of George Parker.
Well, first, do you know the Harwell name?
Are they the textile people?
That's right. Strange sort of family. Fortune was built by the deceased father. She was his only child. He naturally had wanted the son to carry on the name and the business. So he trained her, Amelia. She took the man's place all her life.
How old was she?
Something over 70.
And did she still head up the business at that age?
She took a very active part.
What about the poison?
I haven't gotten any of the details on that. That'll be up to you.
Anything on the surviving family?
Yes. I have it here. The husband, Thomas, the daughter, Maxine, and the son, Dexter. Here, you keep it. Got the ages and all.
Thanks.
From what I can gather, she was an extremely domineering woman. Ran her household like a factory. There must have been very little warmth toward her. Then, when you consider the fortune she's leaving and the insurance...
How much did she carry?
Too much. $150,000 for the family and over $200,000 with the corporation as beneficiary.
Well, that kind of money you should have hired me earlier as a bodyguard. Expense account item 2, $40, car rental, and $22 fuel and incidentals between Hartford and the Harwell estate on the eastern shore of the Cape near South Wellesley. The mansion was as solid as the family's Dun and Bradstreet rating. Heavy brick construction with turrets, shuttered windows, and massive double doors that opened into a coldly formal entry hall. The widower, Thomas, as might have been expected, was the rabbit type. Pinch glasses, high-stuffed collar with string tie and sparse hair. It was announced to him in the library where from the wall a life-size portrait of Mrs. Harwell seemed to be keeping an eye on the proceedings.
Well, how do you do, Mr. Dollar?
Nice of you to see me, Mr. Harwell.
That will be all, Brighton.
Yes, sir.
You close the door, Brighton.
Yes, sir.
Please sit down, Mr. Dollar.
Thank you. Well, these things are always hard to start, Mr. Harwell.
I'm accustomed to bluntness, Mr. Dollar. Besides, I've talked about Mrs. Harwell for almost 50 years. I see no reason to hesitate now, because she's dead. She was poisoned, you know.
Yes, I'd heard.
But I don't think she minded.
You don't think she minded?
Mrs. Harwell was an invalid. She had a very short time to live.
I didn't know that.
Well, very few people did. She hardly admitted it to herself. Mrs. Harwell was a very strong woman, one who despised weakness, yet made everyone around her weak.
Neither of these poems have been released to the papers, the illness or the poison?
No. Due to a friendly gesture by the police, she's been spared notoriety. She wouldn't like it to be known, so it isn't.
Was she in pain, Mr. Harwell?
She never told me.
Do you think she could have taken the poison herself?
I hardly think so. That would have been an admission of defeat.
I see. Do you have any idea how she could have gotten the poison, then?
You're asking me if I suspected children. You're finding it difficult to do so. Is that correct?
It's hardly a pleasant thing to bring up.
The time for delicacy is past. I'm afraid I don't approve of my daughter or my son at all.
Oh?
They're the worst sort of rich men's children. Or rich women's, I should say. I was never allowed to be their father. All they've had is a mother. They have no gumption, no ambition. They've been overly educated and have developed nothing but insatiable lust for their mother's money. And it's too late to change them. Without it, they could not exist.
I understand they live here.
They do. I should have Brighton call them to the drawing room if you wish.
That won't be necessary right now. What about the servants?
Well, there are 8. Mrs. Harwell settled a small amount on each, but unfortunately they are above suspicion. They're common people, and as a result, good.
Did Mrs. Harwell have a nurse?
She wouldn't hear of it.
Well, certainly a doctor, then.
Yes, Dr. Stevens in the village.
Thanks, Mr. Harwell. I won't take up any more of your time.
You're welcome any time, Mr. Dollar. Please give Dr. Stevens my regards. Dara. The Harwell case passes from my hands into yours. I wish you more success than I've had.
Thanks, Doctor.
Amelia was not only a hopeless cancer victim, but she was a stubborn old fool. I could have saved her life with surgery 3 years ago, but I made the mistake of advising her, and advice was something she could not accept.
You've been friendly with them that long?
I tended them longer than that, but friendly has hardly the word. I brought each of their children into the world, but have yet to use the given names of any of them, in their presence, that is.
Well, I'm glad to talk to somebody like you. I found talking to the old man a little rough. I'm used to survivors being sad about death, or suspicious, or something.
I'm afraid that with Thomas, instead of a feeling of grief, it's something akin to passing from slavery into freedom.
And the children, are they as worthless as he makes them out?
I'd say so. Maxine, the oldest, is a bitter, frustrated old maid of 33. And Dexter, 32, is an alcoholic and has just entered into an unsuccessful marriage.
Do you think either of them could have killed their mother?
I'm in no position to accuse any of them, but there is the inheritance and your insurance.
Fine household. How long would you have lived?
Hard to say. 2 months, possibly 3.
The family know that?
I've been honest with them.
Then why kill for profit?
I don't know.
Could it have been a mercy killing?
I've wondered. It doesn't sound like them. You take a risk like that, but it's a possibility.
What kind of poison was it?
I don't know. I've been asked to attend the inquest this afternoon. If you'd like to call me at home this evening, I'd be glad to tell you what I've learned.
Thanks, Doctor, I will. So far, except for lining the family up and accusing them one by one, I can't seem to map out a move. What about this marriage you mentioned?
Dexter? I don't know much about it. The girl's name is Gretchen Nielsen. She owns a small photographic studio just down the street.
Small business, huh? It's below Harlow standards, isn't it?
That is probably the cause of the trouble. I don't doubt that Amelia wouldn't let her in the house.
Through the plate glass window of her studio, Gretchen Nielsen looked like a girl anyone would enjoy having around the house. She lived up to her Nordic name, fine straight features, warm blue eyes, the look of strength about her. I got her home address and knocked at the door of a small house 15 minutes after she arrived home that evening. Miss Nielsen?
Yes?
I guess I should have said Mrs. Harwell. My name is Dollar. I'm an insurance investigator working on the elder Mrs. Harwell's death. I'd like to talk with you.
Well, I don't know anything about it. Why have you come here?
Because I haven't found any place else to go.
I'd rather not talk to you.
Why not? There are things you don't want to say?
All right. Come on in. I'm surprised I haven't been questioned before this.
Police haven't started yet. Probably why you haven't.
I suppose that means I can expect to be dragged into it, either.
I'd imagine so, yes.
We can sit over here.
You know she was poisoned, don't you?
Yes, I didn't until Bryden the butler told me. I read about the death in the paper and phoned out there.
Why aren't you living there with your husband?
You have no right to ask me things like that, have you?
You don't have to answer my questions, but it might be a good idea to get things out in the open.
Why?
Because there has to be a reason for Mrs. Harwell to die the way she did. Could your marriage to Dexter be behind it in some way?
I don't see how.
Wouldn't they let you and Dexter live together in the house?
I didn't give them a chance to let me. They knew I'd never live there. What did they tell you? What did they say about the fortune hunter who lured and trapped their only son?
You weren't mentioned.
That's hard to believe.
Why isn't Dexter here with you?
Because he's a slave. He's too weak to be anything else. I hate myself for saying that, but it's true.
Why'd you marry him?
Because I love him. I thought we had something that would drag him away from that family that smothers him. But when the time came, he wouldn't leave him.
Why not?
Because his mother never taught him to do anything but hold out his hand for the money that was always there for the taking.
He's due to come into some money of his own now. Quite a chunk.
You led the conversation to this point, didn't you? Dexter would never kill for the money.
There has to be a reason why she died.
I think her husband did it.
Why?
To stop her suffering. I caught her off guard a few times. I know she was in pain. And I know she was frightened. Probably for the first time in her life. I think he knew that, too, and wanted to help.
That could be. First, it sounded like you hated her. Now you don't.
I feel sorry for her. Because she made so many mistakes. And now she's dead, and there's nobody to correct them.
I
I didn't string out my meeting with Gretchen Harwell and May Nielsen. I left, went to my hotel, and at 7 phoned Dr. Stevens. His report on the inquest brought out, among other things that didn't seem important at the time, this point. The cause of death was a non-alkaloid poison, administered in suicide or by person or persons unknown. The poison was hardly the type to choose either for suicide or a mercy killing. With what I had, I went out back to the Harwell residence.
I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Harwell has retired.
Is the rest of the family out?
Yes, sir.
I wonder if you'd tell them that I'd like to see them.
Very well, sir. If you'll wait in the library, I'll tell them you're here.
And this is my sister, Maxine.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Now, what do you want?
I understand both of you were here the night your mother died.
Yes.
I've just gotten the verdict of the inquest. The poison that killed her was not a pleasant one. Did any of you hear any sound shortly before your mother was discovered dead?
I didn't, and I found her. I went in to bid her good night.
I didn't hear anything. I was in my room.
Where's that?
Just down the hall from Mother's.
What's the meaning of this anyway?
The point is that your mother would have cried out. The poison would have been...
What's that?
It's Father. He's in his room.
Something's wrong. I'm going up to see.
I went with him. We found Mr. Harwell in bed, clawing at his throat and staring at the ceiling. When I bent over him, he moved a hand towards a glass of water on the bedside table. I picked it up and smelled it. I'm no chemist, but I didn't need to be to know that he'd been poisoned.
Friends, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you'll enjoy chewing Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. Chew Wrigley's Spearmint while you're working. The lively, full-bodied flavor of Wrigley's Spearmint gives you a refreshing little lift. The smooth, pleasant chewing of Wrigley's Spearmint Gum helps keep you feeling relaxed and satisfied. Makes your job seem easier. Chew Wrigley's Spearmint Gum in your home, when you're out walking or driving, when you're enjoying outdoor sports and other activities. Wrigley's Spearmint Gum tastes good anytime. And the natural chewing aids digestion and helps keep your teeth bright and attractive. Yes, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you'll enjoy chewing Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum. Healthful, refreshing, delicious. And now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
I tried to read something in the expressions of the son and the daughter as we stood for a moment around their father's bed. There wasn't much in them. No surprise, no fear, no satisfaction. Maxine looked a little embarrassed and left to phone Dr. Stevens. Dexter looked a little vague and said he thought he knew where a medical book was. And I was left alone with Thomas Harwell.
I'm all right. I'm all right. Call them back, Mr. Dollar. I'm all right. I won't die.
Of course you won't.
I'm all right.
How much water did you drink?
Not very much. I was so thirsty, too. But I think I smelled it. I only said I felt a terrible burning in my throat. I could hardly breathe. Who would do this to me?
I was hoping you could tell me, Mr. Harwell. We won't talk about it now. Dr. Stevens is coming out to have a look at you.
I'm glad he's been called. He's my friend.
Anything I can do for you in the meantime?
No, thank you. I'm going to be all right. I'm not ready to follow Amelia. I'm not ready yet.
I took the glass of poisoned water with me when I left the room. I put it on a table in the hallway outside his door and stayed with it until Dr. Stevens arrived. He spent about 15 minutes with Mr. Harwell, and then he joined me.
It's all right. Where's the furnace?
I sent him downstairs.
Good. You said you had the glass?
Yeah, here it is. Smell it.
There must be enough poison to kill 100 people. He's a very fortunate man.
Can you tell if it's the same stuff that killed his wife?
I'd say yes. Canadine or some such.
What did he say to you?
Very little. I'm only his doctor, you know. But he did tell me that it was unnecessary for this to be reported to the police.
Oh?
I told him it would be absolutely unethical if I didn't. sounds to me as though he's trying to protect the children.
I guess they're used to that. By the way, did you notice the marks on his throat?
No.
Looks as if somebody has tried to strangle him.
Strange, I didn't notice.
Will he all right if I talk to him now?
Oh, I think so. I gave him a very mild sedative, but it won't go to work for a while. Do you want me to wait?
Not unless you think you should.
He doesn't need me any longer, and if you'll stay here in case of another attempt...
I will. I'll call you if anything develops.
Fine. Good night, Mr. Dollar.
Good night, Doctor.
Yes?
How are you feeling, Mr. Harwell?
Oh, quite well, thank you. Quite well. I'm glad you came back, Mr. Dollar. I want to talk to you.
I'm glad to hear that.
I spoke to Dr. Stevens.
About not reporting this to the police?
Yes. Why must he be so uncooperative?
Why did you want the police to know?
Because no matter how serious the purpose was, the results were harmless. I want the subject dropped.
Are you afraid of what police investigation might bring out?
For the sake of the family reputation, I do not want their meddling. I intend to manage this in my own way. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to discharge all of the servants.
You told me earlier that they were all above suspicion. You remember?
Oh, since this attempt upon my life, I thought they were.
It's hard to understand, Mr. Harwell. If you really think that one of the servants tried to poison you, you must realize that the same one killed your wife. Still, you want the matter dropped.
I do. Amelia is gone. I see no possibility that she will return because I bring about for myself and my family the unpleasantness of police interference.
You may believe in your logic, but I'm sorry it won't work. It'll have to be reported.
Then, young man, leave this house. I didn't want you here. You will never be allowed under this roof again.
All right, Mr. Harwell. Good night. I picked up my glass of evidence again and started downstairs. When I got to the entry hall, I heard voices and looked into the library to see the children, Maxine and Dexter. Their conversation had ended by the time I walked in.
How is he?
He's all right. Back to normal.
What are you doing with that glass?
I'm taking it to the police. They'll want to know if it's the same poison that killed your mother, and there's a chance of finding fingerprints on it.
Here we go again.
Your father didn't want me to take it to the police. Why shouldn't he want to report that somebody tried to kill him?
You think he's afraid that one of us did it? Is that what you mean?
It's come to mind.
Get out of here, darling. I don't have to listen to this.
Wait, Dexter, wait a minute. That's what he thinks. The police are going to, too.
Then I'll listen to them. It's their business, but not his. I don't have anything to be afraid of. I didn't keep a 3-month-old marriage secret like you wanted me to.
Dexter.
And I didn't break the news to her by telling her that she was going to be a grandmother like you wanted me to. You think everything's wrong.
Dexter, shut up. You're drunk.
Oh, let him accuse you. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to bed.
He drinks too much.
Is what he said true?
About the baby? Yes, it's true.
That he's living here?
Obviously.
And his wife. She seems to deserve better.
Yes, she does. Dexter was here waiting for Mother to die. So he knew she'd disinherit him if he moved out. And now, neither one of us had better say any more until we got legal counsel.
I took the poison to the police and made a statement. Then I went back to my hotel. 2 or 3 phone calls to Gretchen Harwell. The next morning, I found her at a studio before the day's work began.
What are you doing here?
I tried to reach you last night and couldn't.
What do you want?
Somebody tried to poison Mr. Harwell.
Oh, he's all right?
Yes, I phoned you a number of times last night, but there was no answer.
I was out. I stayed with a girlfriend.
And you left a few things unsaid the last time we talked. Didn't you?
You found out about the baby.
Yeah.
And you've come to congratulate me. How nice. I've been simply swamped with congratulations.
Please, this has to be straightened out, and everything that's held back makes it harder.
What does the baby have to do with it?
Well, it makes a motive stronger than ever for Dexter.
He wouldn't kill his mother.
I was told he'd be disinherited if he left the family manse because of the marriage you kept secret.
Where did you hear that?
Came out last night.
He didn't kill his mother.
How about trying to kill his father?
No. He was trying to help us.
The father? Doesn't sound quite right.
I know it doesn't, but it's true. Dexter didn't even realize it, but I did to him. Mr. Harwell had never done anything in his life, but he tried to help us.
Why?
Because when he married her, he must have had a personality. His mother didn't approve of Dexter and me, but I think his father did.
You didn't keep it a secret from him?
For a little while. Until I insisted that we tell him. And he kept it from Amelia.
Do you know why?
Because she was the dictator. When she was sick, she was worse. She'd think Dexter had waited until she was helpless before marrying the girl he wanted to.
But she found out and was poisoned before she could do anything like dropping Dexter from her will.
I don't care. I don't care. I'll even say that Dexter did have reason to kill his mother. But he never would. And not his father.
You aren't trying to protect him, are you?
Of course I'm not. I don't care how much I love him. I wouldn't want him if he were a murderer.
I did a lot of thinking after I left her. It would have been easy to be swayed by her, and I took that into consideration. In my hotel room, I tried to line up all the points that had come out. Only 2 of them added. By phone, I tried them on Dr. Stevens. He was more agreeable than I'd expected him to be. It was just before noon the next day when once more I walked through the Harwell's front door.
In here, sir. They're waiting for lunch. Mr. Dollar.
That will be all, Bryden.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dollar, I thought I told you not to enter this house again.
You did, Mr. Harwell. But I thought the fact that I might save one of your children from a murder trial might make a difference.
Which one, if I may ask?
Dexter.
I don't understand.
I think we've had enough of this, Mr. Dollar. My family has been quite upset since you've arrived.
I think we've had enough, too, Mr. Harwell. I wonder if I could talk to you in private.
Who are you to ask that?
No, Dexter, I think I agree with him. Please leave.
But, Father, I
You
feel...
too, Maxine.
All right, Dad. Come on, Dexter.
Sure. See if Dollar can tell him anything worse about me than he knows.
Well, Mr. Dollar?
You wouldn't like to see Dexter charged with the murder of your wife, would you?
Of course I wouldn't.
The police are ready to do it. And they've got a good case. You didn't think of that, did you?
I beg your pardon?
You didn't realize that you might set up a situation that would jeopardize your son.
I don't think I understand.
I think you do. You killed your wife, didn't you?
I?
You filled a glass of water last night to throw off suspicion and to get rid of the evidence at the same time.
Mr. Dollar.
If you didn't, Dexter is going to be brought to trial. I can promise you that. I saw the charges being drawn. They have everything against him, except 2 or 3 things.
What are they?
Something that was hidden behind those tall collars of yours. Scratches on your neck. Another thing that came out at the inquest. Bits of flesh under your wife's fingernails. And the fact that your children didn't hear anything the night she died. They all go together. You struggled to keep her quiet, and she scratched you.
You're a very observing young man, aren't you?
Not necessarily, but certain things add up. Am I right?
I could hardly deny it now. Yes. It made such a little difference to Amelia, though I don't imagine the officials take that into consideration.
They seldom do.
But it made such a great difference in Gretchen's child. I've made many mistakes with my own children through deference to my wife. I'd hoped that I could help my grandchildren through strength. Strength enough to do what I have done as a child through Dexter. I had hoped that Amelia, when she knew that a life was being given while hers was being taken, would be glad to approve, but she didn't. She asked for a lawyer so that she could change her will, and I knew what I had to do.
I'm sorry, Mr. Howell.
There are many things to regret, Mr. Dollar, many things. But hastening my wife's death. Her life was decayed. The life she did not want that I did want. It's so fresh and new that it doesn't even know what hope or helplessness can be. Forgive me, Amelia. Amelia. Forgive me.
Expense account item 3, miscellaneous, $35.85. Item 4, same as item 2, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $122.35. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Remember, friends, Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum refreshes you. Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum gives you real chewing enjoyment. The lively, full-bodied flavor of Wrigley's Spearmint cools your mouth, freshens your taste, sweetens your breath. The smooth, pleasant chewing of Wrigley's Spearmint helps keep you feeling relaxed and satisfied, makes whatever you're doing more enjoyable. Yes, for refreshment plus chewing enjoyment, treat yourself often to Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum. Millions enjoy it daily. Get a few packages and always keep some handy. That's Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum. Healthful, refreshing, delicious. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, brought to you by Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures production, The Turning Point. Featured in tonight's cast were Victor Perrin, John McIntyre, Herb Butterfield, Jeanette Nolan, Virginia Gregg, and Peter Lee. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. The makers of Wrigley's Spearmint Chewing Gum hope you enjoyed tonight's story of Johnny Dollar and that you're enjoying delicious Wrigley's Spearmint Gum every day. We invite you to join us next week at the same time when, from Hollywood, Edmund O'Brien returns as
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
This is the CBS Radio Network.
Welcome back. Well, I had a sense that it was the husband who did it from the moment that that we learned about the alleged strangling. It just did not seem realistic that he would have avoided the poison that way. And I think in the O'Brien run, if they were anything, they were certainly realistic. As for the series, this is the last Edmund O'Brien episode we have, it was not the last episode that O'Brien did. This was a 10-week series. 4 weeks were made up of 2 repeats each of the Yankee Pride matter and the Montevideo matter. And the Yankee Pride matter, if I found that, even though it was a repeat, I'd play it again, because that was such a great episode. Then there was also the Henry Page matter, the New Bedford Morgue matter, the Sidney Mann matter, the Tom Hickman matter, the Edith Maxwell matter. So that was all that mattered. And this is the longest consecutive string in Johnny Dollar of lost episodes. O'Brien, of course, was on the cusp of, as we mentioned, real stardom. Oscars, Golden Globe ahead. O'Brien played the title role in another private investigator series with a star named, or lead character named Johnny Midnight. Also played lawyer Sam Benedict. But more than anything else, he was known for the great character roles he took on. He was a guest on a wide variety of different programs and performed in many Golden Age anthology series. On television, he received a Star on the Walk of Fame, actually 2 of them. One for motion pictures and one for television. Made a lot of great films, was in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and The Wild Bunch. But we will hear from Edmund O'Brien again. He was actually the first choice to play the lead in Nightbeat. Plus, at least one of his suspense performances will eventually be one of our specials. But until then, that's it for Edmund O'Brien. All right, well, I want to let you know about the movie that's coming up this week. It's not a movie, but a TV episode from that golden age. It's the General Electric theater presentation of a story that originally aired on Box 13. It's called Committed, and it stars Alan Ladd as Dan Holliday. This is somewhat fitting, as Box 13 was our first show when we started after the pilot. The first show we podcast on October 26th of 2009. So this seemed a fitting choice for this month, and I hope you will enjoy that. A couple scary scenes, but no real big parental advisories on this one. Got a comment here from Jim, who says, you commented about the restrooms in the Chevron ad. I remember in the 50s, a lot of attention was paid to the cleanness of restrooms by all the oil companies in their advertising. Also, they were running promotions, giving away a plate with a fill-up, then selling the service pieces. Marketing of petroleum products has certainly changed in the last 60 years. Remember full-service pump gas, wash windows, check water, oil, and tires. Definitely before my time. One funny story on this. I was actually driving through the state of Oregon, and they pump your gas in the state of Oregon. But they don't do all the other full-service stuff, so I was kind of sitting there like, well, what type of full service is this? And it turns out you're not allowed to pump your own gas in the state of Oregon. And then I became offended about that. Yeah, I can pump my own gas. That's all you're going to do. No, I have not seen full service. It's definitely changed a lot. He comments further, I've been listening since the early days of Dragnet. Keep up the good work. And P.S. to me, these programs are nostalgic. And I'm sure quite a few listeners would share the sentiment. And it's not just nostalgic for people who may have first had the opportunity to hear the program. But I've had some people contact me and say, I remember when I was growing up that we would drive down the interstate, me and my dad, and we would listen to the old-time radio at night. So even there, that shared experience. Well, thank you so much from Jim. I appreciate you listening over there in Oklahoma. We will be back on Monday with Barrie Craig Confidential Investigator. And we'll be back next Friday to introduce you to a new Johnny Dollar in John Lund. In the meanwhile, send your comments to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Detectives and give us a call, 208-991-4783. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.